So you have returned the wealth uh, and the weapons back to the dead that dwells in that tomb. And you can make your way back towards Eikholm, walking through those woods past the corpse of the bear that you had slain previously, and then back into the village itself. People are pleased to see you, and it seems that there's like some relief, and people will say that in your absence, ravens, like a flock of them, flew overhead and like swarmed, and that's obviously a good sign. You can make your way back to the long hall if that's where you want to go. Otherwise, whatever you want to do, that's up to you.
And this is still right after we've gotten back.
Probably would have taken you the guts of a day, I guess, to get
Right.
back to the village.
Odd is in no shape to be able to make any decisions, so all of Odd's decisions of where she goes, so she's pretty broken right now, is going to be left to the Sig.
Yeah, as we come back, I think Sigegnir's biggest goal right now is to get Odd healed. Whatever she needs, he would immediately get it for her, and
All of
he would leave her side.
In that case, I imagine they both would have went back to Odd's hut instead of the long haul. So, and I don't know what the rest would be doing.
And Astrid is proficient in wound-wise, so she could assist the Gegnir if you'd like.
Yeah, he would absolutely accept most help that people would offer.
I think the wound is like pretty brutal, and it looks grisly. Like it's more than superficial, but it's also very like it's going to leave a hideous scar. You think like there's a big flap of skin like hanging off the side of Odd's face. So yeah, I think maybe even for you, Astrida, who would be like familiar with wounds and things, you probably haven't seen like a battle wound like this before, and it's probably a little overwhelming.
Yeah, but I probably have seen like some like animal attacks that have been kind of with the tearing and stuff, and so while it's like not as brutal as, you know, claws tearing from a face, like, you know, the cutting makes it slightly better, but it's still a bit gruesome to see someone's, you know, the inside of their face.
Yeah. So you can like get there and like boil some wine, some like high alcohol wine, and like pour that onto the wound, which will like sting painfully Odd, but it'll hopefully clean it out of any like infection. That's the like the best hope you have of that. And thereafter, I think between Astrida and Sigegnir, they can like hold you down and like begin to like stitch up what remains of the face, or like try to with like some gut string and whatever they can find.
Yeah, I imagine there's no person in all of Iskloft who can feel this kind of pain and not scream, right? And so Odd, who is normally very quiet unless she's in combat, I imagine like her almost like a death knell is coming from her hut, right, this entire time and echoing throughout this small town village, this township of the Jarl. Just because if you're pouring boiling hot wine on someone's basically exposed jaw, not a good time for anybody.
Mm-hmm. So I think like we can see this like woman and her daughter like walking on the way to like collect some water, and then they're walking like near the hut, and they hear this like awful death scream, and the girl just like looks, and the mother just like pulls her hand away from that hut and whatever the hell's going on in there.
I love that.
I think one of these screams interrupts the conversation between Theodhild and the Jarl in the Jarl's longhouse. Just like stopping the conversation. Theodhild definitely would have returned the long haul to tell the Jarl that the deed is done, or the dead are now restful, and no more omens and no more curses will be brought upon this town.
He would look pleased, but he would ask, what caused it?
The dead have been stolen from Reavers, from a place I do not know, a place beyond. took wealth and axes.
From the dead.
Thanks to the warriors you sent along with us. The dead have their materials once again.
That is troubling. Who would steal from the dead?
People who do not know your ways, perhaps. Or people who do but have no honor.
Well, in your absence, there was a great flock of ravens that circled overhead. We believe that to be a good sign, an omen, that the Allfather's favour has returned. But other than that, there have also been discoveries. One of the villages to the northeast has been captured. Were there more of these people?
We saw very few, but there were hints at many more. Off wandering or reaving.
That's troubling. It seems then that it must be these who have taken the village. He like bites his lip and he like runs his hand through his hair. Where is Sigagnir?
He's tending to Odd.
She is unwell?
A grievous wound from the battle at the shore. She still lives yet. We definitely will be marked from that battle.
I suppose it makes sense for Odd. Well, we should give it a few days, see if she can recover. We don't have much time. We're going to have to send somebody to see what's going on in this village and what these people want. Where are you, Oswald?
Oswald is with the Tuathan youth, probably trying to begin to understand him as he's been babbling the entire trip, making sure he comes down from whatever condition of shock that he was in, using Woundwise to tend to him and keep him as calm as possible while he begins to try and understand this foreign language. And I believe that Oswald has, as the Galder, the silver-tongued ability. You know a little of many languages and can sometimes get through simple conversations and small phrases. So that's kind of where I see him spending his time. Maybe he's just outside the Longhouse. Maybe he's within the Longhouse waiting for his turn to speak.
Yeah, I think maybe because you had brought that boy with you, right? That you could be like in the Longhouse, maybe standing near to Thiodhild, and when she had given her report, he would look to you. Who is this?
Jarl. We have found a youth among these brigands, these raiders, those who defile the dead. He does not speak our tongue, nor any tongue that I have heard recently. But I am from a place of trade. I've picked up a thing here or there. I think given time, I may make sense of his words, his sounds.
He doesn't speak our languages. He's like looking at the boy. I can see his like strange dress and like the blue paint that he wears, and he obviously gets the impression that he's not from here.
I will have him cleaned and presentable soon.
Good. See to it.
So Asvald will literally drag him outside and dunk him in a horse trough or whatever would serve for that in this village. Rubbing off the blued paint, cleaning him with, some sort of coarse rag, just making sure that he is, not a wildling or thing that would disturb the kind of what he perceives as presentable, which is a little bit probably higher than the average person.
Theodhild looks to the Jarl. May I take my leave?
Of course.
With that, she just turns around, her loose garb kind of flowing, and exits the longhouse. And I think as she steps outside, another of these screams just echoes across the hills. And it causes her to clench her teeth a bit. And she looks beyond one way where she sees the edge of her forest. Then she looks the other way to see where the screams are coming from. And she walks not back to her forest home, but to the hut of the Ailed.
Yeah, so you can hear like thrashing inside probably, and like screaming through gritted teeth, as like Odd is probably like biting down on some leather as they're trying to like stitch up the face.
And a thump can be heard on the door of this hut as Theodhild knocks on it with her distaff.
You would hear Sigegnir. You can tell that he sounds strained, his voice. And he just says, "Come in." And if you come in, I would just imagine him just like holding down Odd's shoulders, trying to get as out of the way as possible for Astrid to just kind of be able to do her thing.
Astrid probably has one knee on Odd's forearms to keep them from swinging at her, and needle several on the thread and teeth, and sewing in between screams and thrashing. Like not even looking up whenever Theodhild comes in.
She looks upon this sight of just this crueling agony and steps in, hanging up a cape, closing the door behind her. She looks to Astrid. Is she well?
I would spare a glance towards Theodhild at that, kind of with this "what do you think" face. Of course she's not well. And then turn back down to continue stitching.
She leans over, kind of over your shoulder. She glances at you. May I?
Astrid would look to Sigegnir.
Sigegnir just looks at you, Theodhild, with these just anger is flaring up in him, and you can see that he doesn't want you like using your crazy witch magic on her, but I'm sure that he's heard of the things that you've done before for others, and I'm sure that anyway, he just kind of looks at you and just for a moment just stares at you, and then just kind of shuffles over to kind of give you a little bit of room, and just kind of grunts. He just kind of spits on the ground, but says, "If you try anything, your head will be cut off and burned outside of this house."
And she nods, and with a gentle finger, kind of just looks at the wound from many different angles, sees the gruesome injury.
Is Astrida still on Odd's arms as you're poking at the wound?
Yeah, because...
All right. Mm-hmm. I imagine, as her fingers just sinking to the wound deeper than where the stitching is, Odd is actually thrashing even harder than she was before. And I feel like Sigegnio's put something in her hand so that way she can kind of grip it. And at this point, she's bleeding from her fingernails because she's gripping it from so hard. And she's just basically trying to throw Astrida off with all the wounded might that she can muster to basically rip off Theodhild's hand to keep it from touching her face. To no avail, of course.
It is deep. but she will live. She looks to Sigagnir. She may yet live with my help.
Well then, witch, do what you need to do.
But I value my head.
Theodhild, if you're going to do something, then do it. Well, can keep Odd controlled, please. Instead of standing here. Are you waiting for ravens to come and do it for you?
Sigagnir, for this I'll need 2 things. And she looks at the other 3, I guess the other, Odd and Astrid here. You seem to be the most capable of this. Beyond this hut, I need 2 things. One from the forest and one from the meadows. From the forest, I require a seed of the tallest tree in the forest. It is easy to spot. It has rings that mark its age. And from the meadow, I need a flower purple as night, with a long, long stem. Please fetch these for me.
So Gegner would just look at Astrid just as kind of like a confirmation that she is going to look out for Odd and keep an eye on Theodhild before he just kind of stands up.
And she'll just kind of give Sigagnir a nod and say, I know where that tree is, and then can give Sigagnir directions.
And you can see as Sigagnir leaves, he's kind of like muttering to himself, like kind of repeating what Theodhild had told him, just to make sure that he gets it.
And after he leaves, Theodhild would whisper to Astrid, that'll keep him busy for quite a while. And then would say, I have some things I need to fetch. I'll be back shortly. And she would leave the hut. And after a bit, she would return with a rabbit, a hare. She's holding it by the hind legs. It's not kicking or squirming. It seems complacent. And with that, she holds the rabbit above the wound of Odd with one hand, and from the other, she pulls out a long wooden needle that she's whittled herself. It's a bit curled, a bit aged, and she asks Astrid to avert her eyes.
After like a brief moment of hesitation, she would, but would still like remain pinning Odd down for Theodhild, but will, kind of and like look up at the ceiling.
Move. Get off.
Not just yet, Odd.
Get off.
You better hurry up.
And with that, she closes her eyes, and with a low chant, a low hymn, she calls out to the powers that be in the world, the hidden powers. As she stabs this hare numerous times in the belly, drip by drip, the blood will drop, sometimes on the nose of Odd, sometimes on the dirt-packed floor of the hut. And as she does so, she would then knit together the flesh of this hare and the flesh of Odd, each puncture of this needle causing screams upon screams. And she calls out and undoes the work of the Norns, the masters of fate. And with that, after an hour of this ritual, the wound that Odd has is replaced by a patch of leathery, dried hair flesh, complete with its fur, blood-stained. And now she has a dead rabbit in her hands.
I imagine during this, Odd has to have passed out from shock, like, because you can't just keep taking pain after pain after pain. So probably, thankfully for Stritter, right, Odd had stopped thrashing, and then eventually her screams just become grunts, and then her eye would just roll into the back of her head as she just completely stops moving as this ritual comes to an end.
And Teodhild would stuff the dead hair in one of her many bags she carries. And then she would, with 2 fingers, keep the eyes of Odd closed, holding them over, and with the other hand would hold it to her forehead and continue to chant more things, causing her to be more restful and cause the pain to vanish. And after this long ritual is done, she looks up to Astrid. You may release her now. It is over. She needs rest. She needs water. She needs a hot pot of soup or stew, something warm.
And Astrid will kind of like look down at Odd's face and like see like the hair and the skin and the fur, and kind of like very curiously like lay one finger on it and kind of like pull her hand back like it burned and say like, it's warm. The hair's flesh is warm. How did you do that?
Some things are best left unsaid. Help me with her, as I would like to drag her and kind of pull her up onto her bed.
Yeah, and I think like Astrid would just kind of whatever Theodhild said for like the rest of the evening would just kind of be like, yes, okay, I'll put her here for you, and yes, okay, I'll get that water. And like without like any question.
And so we cook up some soup of some kind of stew with potato and leek and cabbage. Something filling. And I imagine at this point maybe we'd be, when Sigegnir comes back, just drenched from head to toe in snow and water.
Yeah, so Sigegnir, you would have gone into the forest, I guess, like looking for the requisite bits. Like not your favorite place to be at all, I guess. And it's like evening and it's dark and you can see many a time like a creature watching you. You see that wolf again that you had seen previously. Like in the woods, that's just kind of like watching you. It would kind of like follow at like a safe distance. Wouldn't like growl or anything, but it would just be there. And I think the fear is amplified when you're alone. But yeah, it would take some time to find like the necessary stuff. But I think that Sigegnir is capable, and he would like find it eventually. But you can come back to the village and see that the work seems to be done.
Yeah, I think I can imagine him just walking around the forest, just kind of like muttering angrily to himself, but sword and shield always drawn. And then when he has the things, he would just come back in and he would hold up this. It's probably even like a blue flower. It's probably not even purple because he couldn't even find a purple flower and he just got frustrated. So he would come in and he would kind of go up to Theodhild. All right, I got everything you need. Now what?
She holds out her hands at your arrival. It says, she nods, looks at you very genuinely, says, thank you. These will make sure that she's healed properly. And she would grab these from you. And she would mash one of them between her fingers, and the other she would kind of just fold it many times. And then she would place them just upon Odd's face, one would stuff up one nostril, the other.
Odd's hand shoots up and grabs your wrist, and her eye snaps open. And she looks at you with her one eye, and she slowly moves your hand with all the flowers away from her face and lets go. And lowers her hand and just says nothing, just staring at you.
Look, she is better now. Thank you, Sigegnir.
Leave, Odd would say. And Sigegnir would know he's not speaking to him. But to Strider and Theodhild, who would not know this, Odd is just clearly saying, leave.
I think Estrider would just kind of go over and maybe before today she would have grabbed Theodhild by the shoulders and like let her out, but I think right now she's feeling a bit off put by what she couldn't quite witness but was present for, and so just kind of stands by the door waiting for Theodhild before exiting herself.
Very well. And she would leave, but not before taking a bowl full of the soup with her, and then would depart with this steaming bowl of nice hot soup out into the cold, dark night.
When they're gone, Odd rolls over and she reaches over this pile of furs she has in one corner of her hut, and she pulls out what's basically like just this thick container of leather, and she pops it open and she takes a deep swig, and then she hands to Sigegnir the most thick, yeasty beer that you could imagine. But this is beer as Odd likes her beer. Because Odd is, again, a warrior, and though she may be a woman, there's quite a lot of things about her that's very masculine. And she waits for Sigegnir to take it, and she touches her face, and she feels fur and hair, and she looks she looks at you, Sigegnir, and she says, "You will need to teach me how to shave."
And you would just hear this like very loud, hearty laugh come from Sigegnir as he just takes this big swig from this jug, and he just kind of puts it down, and he's just studying the like Odd's face where this rabbit fur is, and he's just so perplexed by it. And what did that witch do to you?
Odd like shakes her jaw, like flexes it, and like it creaks and it groans and it cracks. And then she reaches up and she touches it and she says, "It will scar nicely." And Odd's like her lips break into the thinnest possible smile you can imagine. And she says, "That was a nice battle, wasn't it, Sigegnir? Odin watched it. I dreamt of him and what he told me of it."
Yes. We took on way more than we should have, and we did well.
We did well.
Bravely.
Where is my sword?
Your sword?
The too often. He had a sword. I killed him and I took it. Where is it now?
And Sigegnir's like brows would just kind of furrow as he just kind of is thinking, and he says, I think that foreigner has it, Oswald.
And probably the most unfeminine thing Odd could do, she grabs her crotch and she spits on the ground. And then she says, "Tomorrow after we shave this fur off my face, we will go get it back before he leaves."
Sigegnir would just nod, and he would turn. Well, he would. Do you require anything else?
She rubs her face some more, and she looks to you. And she says to you, "Make sure the Jarl knows. Gunland is too often. 40 of them, probably." And then she would start making herself a bowl of the stew that Theodhild left her, and she would say nothing more.
Yeah, Sigegnir would turn to leave, and he would go and probably go towards the longhouse, because as far as he knows, I don't think he would think he would know that people that Jarl's been talked to yet, so he would go out and head towards his way.
Sure. I think on the way you'd see out in the street in like one of the troughs, Oswald like dunking the Tuathan's head into like the trough and like washing or trying to like pull the dreadlocks or whatever out of his hair, and then like pulling up out and trying to wash off the woad and whatnot as you're walking by, and he's like, I imagine Oswald is like piecing together bits of the language and like little bits that he remembers or like things he's heard, and he's like starting to ask him questions, and that's what you would see as you like walk towards the longhouse. Go ahead.
Oh, I think that Sigegner would actually walk towards Oswald, and as he approaches him, he just says, "You seem to have a death wish, my friend," as he just kind of like claps him on the shoulder.
I am untouched in battle. Why do you speak this?
You have something that does not belong to you.
And he'll hold up the Tuathan youth. I have not claimed this role. I am merely cleaning it for the Jarl, trying to decide if there is a way to tell where his people are.
Do you have the sword? Is it on you visible in some way?
All the gear was packed on the 2 horses we took from the long ship, or the beach.
Okay, so then he would just say, No, I care not what happens to that boy. No, it was a sword.
Yes, the wild woman was muttering about it. It is lashed to the 2nd horse, the brown one.
And he would nod and just kind of, he would go there after he talks to the Jarl. He would just leave and...
That gold mail, it is on the 1st horse, the one to blotches. I think it would fit you well. We could size it to you, repair the leather, the damage. It would look good on you, Sigagner.
And you see, like, Sigegner just kind of, like, just, like, this half-cocked smile and just kind of nods and, without another word, just kind of heads towards the longhouse.
Yeah, you'd find the Jarl inside. He'd be talking to Thorgir, who's, like, one of the warriors, about concerns about this village, and he would see you and would look relieved. Where have you been? Come, sit.
I'm sorry for not coming to you right away. Odd needed immediate attention.
Yes, I heard she was wounded.
Have you been told about what happened?
Briefly, yes. Foreigners. Tuathans?
And Gunlander.
He like looks up to the sky, like, why did the gods piss on me? And like shakes his head. A crew?
Yes. There was way more than what we had fought. Maybe 40.
That makes sense. They've taken a village northeast of here. You'll have to go and speak with them, deal with them. I don't know. It's a lot of people. I can give you 15 warriors and maybe 10 people from the village to bring with you. Although we don't have many. But it needs to be dealt with. We cannot let them roam around our lands unchecked.
Yeah, Sigegner would nod. I don't understand why Gunlander and those foreigners, those others, why they would be here. It just doesn't make any sense. But I will go and look.
Gunlanders love war more than they love anything else. And they'll find any reason, any excuse, though the Tuathans are odd. That's unusual. We don't go there and they don't come here. I've never seen one except for this boy. And he'll like point to like the open door, and you can see Oswald like dunking his head back under the water and like pulling him back up, like, where are you from? He's like asking him questions. And he would say, it's odd, they don't come here. It's so far. Why would they work with... He's like getting himself worked up, and he like takes a breath. We don't know yet. We'll have to discover. I'll have the men muster what we can and be ready to leave in a day or two.
So Gegner would just nod. You're good.
And he would say, you killed a number of their men and you took from them treasures, I assume.
Yes, we took what was there.
He would just give you this look of like, and where's my percentage?
And he would just totally blame Oswald on this. He would... he would say... He would just kind of sigh. That's what happens when you let some shiny, armored, no good. And he would just kind of grumble. I will make sure that you get what you are owed.
Good. And you would notice, Gegner, that like he wants you to give him the treasure so that he can give it to use mostly. But it's just like part of the process that he decides to give it to you as opposed to you just taking it, you know? Like, you know that he's like, even though he's like not the wealthiest, he's also generous and he will like give you the things that you require and want. But it's like part of the process is that he's the one who gives it to you and it's like under his whatever. So he would say to Thorgir next to him that he's to begin rallying the warriors and even some of the villagers, and like those who are able and willing will go with you to see what happens in this village. So over the next like day or so, Aud can like get what rest she needs, and the rest of you too. Theodhild will return to her hut in the forest. And their busy days, you can see like the villagers are gathered one day and like are spoken to, like that they're a nearby village has been claimed or taken by these foreigners, and that something needs to be done about it, and that they would come and save us if we needed it, and that sort of communal responsibility is kind of hammered home. By the end of it, there'll be 15 warriors and 15 villagers who will go with you to see what's going on in that village.
Over the course of these days, Yarrow, during one of the nights, soon after the sun has set, the family who belonged to the man that was slaughtered by Aswald's goat of death, Aud would approach them one night, and she's wearing this hood and these thick furs, and the camera never quite shows her face, and the people, I imagine, look at her aghast, not because of the scar, but because of something else I won't describe yet. And she hands them this bag of hack silver, and she says to them, "This is the Vargold for his death."
Thank you. The woman looks like satisfied. Thank you. That will help.
Perfect. And then that same night, she would actually go to the Jarl's longhouse. And as she enters, she throws back the hood. And you see that she has shaved the rabbit fur off the side of her face. But replacing it is this weird construct of bones that covers the lower half of her face. Like the lower jaw of the skull that's been kind of shaped up ornately. And then like the upper lip of what would have been the skull too. And as she enters with this weird half mask bound to her face, she goes to the curtain that separates the Jarl's room, and she basically just says, "My liege." And she waits for him to either awaken or like move the curtain aside to talk to him or whatever he does.
Yeah, he'll like part the curtain. He's in like a nightgown, basically. Odd, you're well. You're standing.
I am. I've had a dream. A dream from Odin and the Valkyries, and I've heard my calling, and I know how to save your daughter.
He like almost steps back from you. A vision? How?
And she removes pieces of the bone so that way you can see the side of her face. And she will say the two orphans have shown me many things.
Well, honestly, I'm glad. Better it comes from the Allfather, this healing, than from...
Yes.
He just lets that hang. He means the witch, obviously.
Of course. And she wouldn't say anything either. She readjusts the bone mask. And as she's moving, like underneath her furs, there's this rattling, like there's something underneath it. And she says to him, "It'll take me 8 hours to sing the song Odin has taught me. But at the end of it, your daughter will no longer be sick."
He like smiles at that, obviously pleased. What do you need? What can we provide?
I will take her into the forest at dawn. You can come if you would like, but it will not be present. What Odin has shown me is something not for the faint of heart. Not to say, my lord, that you are such a thing, but it is horrific. But she will be cured.
I see. It's best
I
that I
will
go.
need-
He'll like nod to himself, trying to convince himself. He's obviously like nervous and maybe afraid of what's to come, but he wants to be there.
I will need a spear and a bowl.
Of course. Yes, yes. And he'll like brush past you into the long hall, and he'll like talk to some thralls to like begin organizing the stuff that's necessary.
And where does Segegnir and Astrida sleep?
Where do we sleep?
Yeah, like do you like live like do you have like a family, Astrida? Because I know Segegnir
Yeah.
doesn't have a family. Okay, you do.
I have a father that
A father.
she lives with.
So I imagine that Aswald, of course, sleeps in the Jarl's long hall as he's a guest. She would wake him up and tell him to come with her. And then she would go find Segegnir and then do the same. And would Aswald listen?
With the changes to Odd, Oswald would surely pause, thinking Odd some sort of demon spirit in the night, or if this was morning, at least some sort of hallucination from a lucid dream. He would, though, slowly rise, and out of nothing more than curiosity, perhaps, follow.
I think
So
there's
Ash-
definitely a similarity in like the vision of the dead that you had seen, the Einherjar Yar with like the skull face, and when you see Odd, there's a weird mirror there, like with the bones on the face, and maybe for a moment Oswald you would think he's back, or like this thing is back.
His curiosity and just sheer need to know is enough to drive him to his feet quickly. And once his fight or flight response has been quelled slightly, he will follow, grabbing his things and making sure the Tuathan boy is either bound or with someone in trust.
I like to imagine, Lloyd, that even some of the thralls are like whispering like "Hello, walks among us," because like the right side of her face is so messed up, and she has that bone theme going on. But she would go and she would pick up Segegnir, since he always has to be picked up. And then Astrida, what could you or your father react when basically Odd, decked out with this bone mask, with these two people with her, basically comes knocking at your door?
I think Astrider would, her father would have no reaction because he's laying in bed, coughing and sick himself. And so there would be like a brief moment where like Astrider would think that someone had come for her father, like a Valkyrie had just come to the door and knocked for her father, and to kind of like turn around to make sure that he has his knife in his hand, and then like a second later like realize that see like the wooden eye, and then just kind of like relief kind of and disappointment at the same time, and then just kind of nod in greeting.
Odd nods back, and you know that she's not a woman who really gives you like explanations for what she says. And so she says to you, "Your father is sick. Come with me, and I will show you something that will help me help your father. But it is best you see me do it to another first before I do it to him."
and she's just kind of silently like grab her cloak and come with.
And once the gang's all together, minus the witch, because who wants the witch here? She would go back to the Jarl's long hall and just wait for the thralls to finish preparations before heading out to basically heading out into the forest to find a very old tree to do this at.
Yeah, you can do so. Like the preparations are made quickly, and just before dawn, basically, they would have all the things you need, and like thralls to carry the daughter as she can't walk into the woods with you. The Jarl will follow, belting his sword to his waist.
So before I recount this, to refresh my memory, basically it was a hanging animal, and then I'm cutting it, and then I'm cutting the daughter while singing, right? For this song?
I think so.
Okay, we'll go with that anyway, just again, that's what it is.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, not doing a horse, because a horse is a lot to hang as one animal. There's this pig that Odd has set up from these branches to this old, stupidly old tree, right? So old that the leaves have long since fallen. The branches are basically pale white in color, the color of bones, really. And as this dead animal is hanging from the branches, she points to this bed of twigs and branches that she's made underneath the gloom of this tree. And she says to the Jarl, "Put your daughter there."
He like looks at the old tree with some measure of wonder and awe. The trees are sacred to many people, and he would like feel like the sacredness of the area and of the tree, and he would nod, and he would rather than let the thralls do it himself. He would like pick her up and bring her over.
"This will take me until about midday, my Jarl." And when she says that, her raven lands in the branches of this deathly tree, and it lets out that standard raven squawk that echoes across the hill. And she looks to the thralls and to her friends gathered, or rather her comrades gathered. And she will say to all of you, probably more words than Oz ever said at once, as she makes a small speech saying, "I have had a dream. The All-Father has come to me, and he stuck a sword in my chest, and he told me the sword would not be pulled out until I answered my calling. And for years I have went around, traveled the world, fought men, killed men, with the sword still in my chest. And I realized it was not just my hand that would pull it out. The All-Father told me it would be many hands that would pull it out." And she throws back this cloak she's wearing, and you would see that her entire body is adorned with bones. She has ribs over her ribs. She has finger bones decorating her hands like gloves. She has spines hanging from her back. She has this dress, this skirt of leg bones and shins and feet. Her legs are armored, as she is almost completely decked out in the bones of the dead. And as she stands before Sigegnir and Astrider, Asvald and the Jarl, and all these other thralls, she says to them, "These are the bones of those who have not been buried when they died, those who did not die with weapons in their hands, those who did not make it to Valhalla, those who did not make it to the corpse hall, those who would have been like you, Sigegnir." And she looks at you, Sigegnir, when she says this. "The All-Father has told me this. I am to go from place to place, battlefield to battlefield, and adorn myself in the bones of those I have killed. And through my glory, they too shall know glory. And thus they too will enter into the corpse hall." And then she stabs the dying animal above her. And when she pulls out the spear, this black ichor comes out, and it falls onto the Jarl's daughter. And I imagine like he has like this bad reaction to it. But she would just look at him with one eye, and the raven would squawk again. And then she would lower the spear slowly, and she would begin to sing this low song, throat singing it. So it's very raspy, very hard to listen to, as she begins making small cuts and moving in circles around the girl. And as she's making these cuts, she will begin throwing up, vomiting this black ichor into the bowl, and she will bleed from these wounds, more black ichor. But the color will return to her flesh. She will no longer be as pale. And even though Odd is wounding her, stabbing her with this spear, she is being healed through the power of the song that Odd is singing. And as she is singing it, it gets louder and louder. So it's reverberating off of these bone trees, and the raven is squawking with it. And then when it comes to when the sun is at its peak, she stands over the daughter, and lowers the spear and drops it to her side. And she looks to the Jarl to come inspect the work.
So, like, throughout the ritual, many of the thralls would have been grabbing at their amulets, like, nervous, and, like, seeing this death maiden going through this process. That the Jarl would, like, watch with keen eyes, trying to see what's happening. He doesn't understand. I don't think anyone does. What's really happening here. But at the end, he would, like, go and inspect his daughter, and she would, like, her eyes would flutter open. And there would be like colour in her cheeks, and she would cough briefly, but then sit up of her own power. Father? She like, looks around at the strange situation she's in, and like the blood and the ichor and all this insanity. And as she like says, "Father," the raven will caw loudly, and he would like just look at you. There are like tears in his eyes. How?
I told you I have dreamt, and the All-Father has taught me. And she will lift her coat of furs and use it to cover her cloak of bones. And then she will look to the girl and go to one knee and grab her by her chin and lift it up to make sure the color is there. And then she will say to her, "Stitch your wounds. Use hot wine. And one day, it will be as if you were never sick at all." And then she will stand without saying a word and just move away from the Jarl. Let him and his daughter have their moment, and then look to you, Estrida, to see what your reaction to all this was, and communicate to you through that look that she plans to do the same to your father when they come back from this raid.
And because Estrida knows that Odd does not communicate with words, like Estrida would just kind of give her like a nod that's kind of eager and like appreciative. Just kind of the gratitude is there.
And then she will look to you, Asvold, and she will walk down to you until she is just a mere 3 or 4 inches away from you. I imagine Odd's not quite your height, but given the presence she carries, she might as well be a Jotunette herself. And she's actually looking down on you despite being shorter than you by a bit. And she says to you, underneath her mask, "You will be expected to do the same if you were to stay in this village. To heal as I have healed, and to kill as I have killed." And she waits for Asvold's response.
Oswald is pretty much stunned at all of this. He thought he was brought here for a reason, that Odin had led him to this village, and seeing all these things has made him almost question his faith. He thought he knew everything. He thought that he was on the path to knowledge and that his way was the right way. And being in this village and seeing the witch and seeing Odd, he is stunned for a moment, and he shakes his head, coming out of almost a trance. He had looking down on his hands. What wild woman?
If you call me wild woman again, your bones will be added to my cloak.
Odd. Yes, Odd.
And she will reach out with one hand, and she will place it on your chest. And then she will pull you a bit closer to just basically an inch from her. And she will lean in, her bone mass scraping on your bearded cheek and the teeth in your ear. And she will say to you, "I will repeat myself to you only once again in my life. You will heal for this village, and you will kill in this village. As Odin has told me, I am now telling you." And then she will push him back after she does that. And then look to Segegnir, basically telling him to come on, and then she would leave.
You can return to the village, and like preparations are made, but that night there'll be a great sacrifice given to the Allfather. One of the horses, which is like a very pricey sacrifice, will be like brought, and they will ask you, Oswald, to sacrifice it. The Jarl believes that like the curse has been lifted, and he believes that you are important to this community, and he wants the people to see that like you're capable, and that it was like your actions as well as the actions of the others that like led to this curse being lifted. And so similar to before, there's like a stage set up, and the horse has been like partially drugged so that it's not freaking out. And there are drums and torches, and you can step up onto the stage if you want to. That is, you don't have to accept, but you've been offered.
Yeah, it does take Oswald a while to kind of snap out of it. Just seeing all this with the witch the days prior, where she led people around like the Pied Piper, and Odd, this crazy wooded warrior, performed this rite that he thought he was here to do. He is definitely conflicted inside now, and he has some runes burned into his flesh. And he has kind of been tracing them as they walked back to the village and thinking slowly and looking to the sun and looking to the trees. And he will eventually step up, nodding as the Jarl does the request. He attempts to steel himself and will gather what courage he has, because a crisis of faith to him is far more than standing against a horde of warriors. Yes, this I will do. And he looks to see what the animal is and sets his things down, grabbing his gear to sanctify and perform a ceremony.
Yeah, the horse is just at the right height that you can like stand on the platform. They've painted Othan, like Odin's rune, onto its forehead as like a sacrifice to the Allfather. In thanks for like the healing and the berserker's skills, and I'll need from you a either lore-wise or seath-wise, whichever you prefer.
Okay. For me, we will take. We'll do lore-wise. So that is I have expertise in it actually. So 21.
Excellent. So you like lead the chant to the Allfather in giving thanks for his wisdom and his Galder, his like magic, and then you'll bring down the hammer onto the horse, and it will just like kick out once, though no one will be harmed, and it will fall into the dirt. And as it does so, you'll see this glorious omen. The blood will run in rivulets from the forehead, and in the dirt it will make the shape of the rune Jera, which is like the harvest rune, which is like reward for efforts sort of realized, and it'll like run into the dirt, and you'll see that as a glorious omen.
Oswald will, as the blood is draining and this omen is kind of rich in everyone's minds, he will speak up, remembering himself. He is a holy man, a man of Odin. Hail Odin, Lord of Asgard, warrior and the wanderer, valiant and the wise. You to whom all the gods of Asgard look. Sky Father, on the eight-legged steed, you who traded an eye for wisdom. And he will pause for a moment to look, searching the crowd for Odd.
If she is there, I imagine she's very far back in the back, almost in the shadows of like another hut.
You who traded an eye for wisdom and ruled a turbulent realm, give us the wisdom to accept the twists and turns of fate, even as you have surrendered yourself to the mercies of the Nords. Protect us, Allfather, from what harm may come to us. Lead us through the wilderness and bring us safely to the great hall that you reserve only for the brave of Spearmit. Hail to the Allfather.
The crowd will shout back, "Hail Odin! Sail Odin!" And the sacrifice is complete, and people seem pleased. There will be like claps on the shoulder for you, Oswald, and seemingly the people have forgotten all of the weirdness previously. And they're pleased that like the rune was like shown in the blood, and that this sacrifice has gone well, and you spoke well, and so sort of like in a moment the perception of you shifts like from moment to moment, and people seem to think of you well now. And so fickle is the crowd. And so like the next morning will come clear, and the warriors will like assemble with you, and also like the local people who, many of them armed with like spears and shields, whatever they can manage to like scrape together, while the warriors themselves would be like in mail, would have axes and shields, ready for the fight to come potentially. And so you can gather these people and begin moving towards that village. But before we get there, we're going to take a quick break, get a drink, freshen up, etc., and we'll be back in a sec. Right, I'm back. So thanks to all the people who are watching. I hope you're enjoying it. Kind of new to this Zoom thing, and I probably should have made a be right back screen, which I did last time. But sure, look, you just watch us.
And voila.
Some nice Odinic sorcery.
But experience some not Odinic sorcery back at Toadhill's hut.
You're only as good as your last ritual, for the crowd. They're like, hey, look, screwed it up last time, but this time you've done well, so we've forgiven you. So you'll be in charge of this thing, Sikegner, since you're like the hairseer. So you'll
The
have,
warlord. You're the war leader. Lead the war.
you'll have a bunch of warriors at your command.
But who's going to fetch the witch? That's the good question.
That is a
The
good question.
Pied Piper of foreign warriors.
Right, so the morning comes and the troop of yourselves, 15 warriors and 15 villagers armed with whatever they could manage, begin the journey north and east. The first someone has to go and get the witch. I think they probably send Thorgeir to his chagrin and fear. He'll go with like some of the villagers through the woods to find your hut, Theodhild. And like he won't knock on the door or anything like that. They'll get like to within 20 or 30 feet and then he'll just shout, "Say there."
The horse whinnies at the call, but no answer comes from within the wooden hut.
He like looks to the men next to him and shrugs. "Say there."
Theodhild is beyond the hut, in some glade or some grove, a few 100 yards from her hut. She is out of earshot, perhaps, of these few individuals.
They stand sort of awkwardly at the edge of the hut, like afraid to like knock on the door. Thorgeir is like deeply fearful of you, and he'll like grab his amulet and then shout even louder, "Say there!"
I think this echoes through the leaves as Theodhild looks up from her blood-stained hands, as her eyes roll back in their normal positions as she hears this call. And she looks down at this mess down on this stone, on this giant rock in the middle of this grove. We can see bits of blood dripping down one of its sides. She wipes off the blood of her hands on some rag within the folds of her cape. She grabs the distaff, leaned against the bark of a tree, and she walks to the source of the calling, her hut. And she sees, before they see her, she sees them. And she would whisper, but with a whisper that would reach their ears easily. "Yes."
Yeah, they all just
Does
like,
Jarl call for me once again?
they'll like clutch at the amulets and like look around. They can't see you. He does. We're to go northeast. Find the foreigners.
Very well. Send the Jarl my regards. You may leave.
You have to come with us.
Very well. Sit by the fire within my hut.
We're
I'll
fine
be
out
not
here.
long. Very well. And Theodhild would turn around from the darkness of the tree line back to this grove of very strange sorcery and complete her offering as once again she begins the chants, resumes this interruption. Her eyes roll back in their head, they glaze over a dark purple. She picks up the knife on the stone tablet. She stabs this hound she's lured from the town. A hound of agedness, but still of good use. Stabs him multiple times, over and over again. It's been painted in blue and red and gold and green, swirls and symbols. The blood drips further and further. And she repeats but one phrase. I give this to you. I give this to you. I give this to you. Until there's nothing left but this bloodied pulp of what used to be a dog, dismembered, entrails everywhere. And she looks, and her eyes resume. They roll back, and she can see once more. And she feels less burdened. There's a weight that's been left off her shoulder. And she leaves. Yeah.
The breeze in the like little grove you're in, there's like this, and it kind of picks up, and you can hear in that breeze this accepted, as the like leaves rustle or whatever, and no one else would hear it, but you can like understand that something has accepted this sacrifice.
She pulls up the hood of her cape once more, hiding her face, and trots and walks back to the hut, distaff in hand. This whole mess of a ritual left behind her, including the stone knife.
As you like make your way into the clearing where your hut is, the camera will like follow you, and then it'll like look back, and there's nothing on the rock, no mess, no dog, no nothing. It's gone, taken by something, and you can like make your way to the men who like are understandably nervous, and like you've got blood in your hands still, and you can see Thorgeir is like gripping his amulet so hard that he might just like crush it, and he like looks. You should come with us. The Jarl has said we have to go and kill the foreigners.
She gives a little bit of a smile as she enters her hut, and from within she calls out, "Some bread for the road?"
You can see the camera will see like the three of them, Thorgeir in the middle, and he's like eyes wide, and one of the other dudes with him is like, I don't know, I wouldn't mind some bread, and and Thorgeir's like, yeah, and he like elbows him, and they're all just like shaking their heads.
And she emerges from the hut. She's cleaned herself off, and under each arm she holds like 3 loaves of bread. But they're fresh baked. They're nice and steaming still. Not quite hot enough to burn her, but she has these 3 loaves of bread, and she would kind of like extend her arm in a bit to kind of offer for them to grab a loaf if they wish.
Thorgeir definitely won't, though the man next to him will like look at Thorgeir and then look at the bread. It looks delicious and fresh, and he'll like take it, like break it open, and it's like steaming and warm and soft, and he'll like probably look at Thorgeir like, what? It's good.
And she has a nice genuine smile of just like when a kid shows their parents a drawing they've had and they staple it to the fridge or whatever. It's just a nice, prideful moment. And yeah, she just tucks away the rest of the bread in a little basket on the side of the saddle of her horse. She unhooks it from the branch of a tree and hops atop it and gives the men a nods.
So you can
let us go.
Yeah, you can make your way with them to like the main group who are like standing on the edge of the forest waiting, and I imagine like maybe a couple of the warriors are just like, oh my god, it's gonna take hours. It feels like they've been waiting, but eventually like you'll return with Thorgeir, and those of you who have been waiting can see Thorgeir's eyes like, oh, what the hell happened in there? I don't like it. Until eventually like you can all gather and begin marching northeast towards this village.
Asvald would like to speak to the Jarl quickly before they
Sure.
So those 2 horses have been kind of stabled to the front of the longhouse with all the gear they've taken from the raid on the beach, and he will offer them to the Jarl, and specifically showing him like the shields, the weapons, and then he will have the boy cleaned, and having perhaps traded a small hatchet or something for some basic clothes for the lad, he's got him as presentable as possible. If he has any like strange pieces of woad, and little jewelry or anything, he'll have removed that. Any sort of braids or odd things in his hair, he'll have shorn them off, cut them. And he has made him as civilized as he could think of in the moment. And he will offer him to the Jarl. My Jarl, this is Sven. We do not know his name yet. He will not speak it. I will call him Anvil Sven soon. He is strong, like steel, but he is a boy. He is yours for the moment. Do with him as you wish. He will aid us not in this journey. But perhaps we shall see if he knows anything soon. What will you have me do with these supplies?
He'll look at the boy, like he'll make a good thrall, certainly. And there'll be like this sort of like formal-ish ceremony where like you give him the stuff, and then he, in his generosity, will give it back to you. So he will like hand back to you like the weapons and the mail and things, particularly because you have to arm so many people. And he will say, "What is a lord if not a breaker of rings and a giver of gifts?" As he like hands back the things that you just gave him.
What is not a warrior if he cannot serve his Jarl? Many thanks. And he will go about trying to, any of the warriors, hopefully they have their own gear, but if not, he will give them spears or shields. The 15 villagers that you're sending, what are they comprised of?
So most of them have a spear. Some of them have spears and shields. And then some of them have like throwing spears or like bows and arrows and things, like just whatever they can manage. All of them would have like knives and stuff as well.
Okay. So he will take any of the spare shields and hand them to the villagers and instruct them to hand them to Sigignir Odd or Oswald himself whenever one of them drops a shield in battle, that they are to rush forward and hand the shield or perhaps one of these short spears to any warriors who have lost theirs. That is their task, their purpose in life. Otherwise, they are to tend to the gear and the horses.
Yeah, they would nod. Oh, I'm muted. Yes, they would nod. And like see to that task. And with that dealt with, that fine gear is returned to you to like distribute amongst yourself as you wish.
Are we riding any horses there, or are we all on foot?
So I think that you would be offered horses if you wanted them, like you of this group. And then some of the warriors would be like riding, but most people are walking.
Yeah.
Odd will definitely take a horse.
Yeah, Estrider's got Kari and Dag today. Amon's at home keeping watch over her father. And it's like today, like rather than like wearing like her huntsman garb, like where like, it's just like the loose skirts or whatever that she wore to like the raiding party, like Estrider is like in like the leather with like the jerkin and pants and whatever, and she's got like her father's shield on her back and his war sex at her belt, but she still has like the bow in hand, but she has the shield for the shield line if need be, like looking the part of the warrior, since
this is a war party and you're dressed for war.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like probably the case with most people. Is that like even the warriors would like have like shined up their mail or like their weapons and things so that they can look more impressive maybe than they are. There's something powerful about shining mail.
I imagine that Odd would saunter beside Estrida on her horse and then look up and down. How old is Estrida, would you say?
I think I decided she was like 20.
All right. The horse is going to like move around you into a circle until she's on your other side. And she's going to say to you, without looking at you, Estrida, that the raven on her shoulder is looking at you. She says, "It is unusual for a young woman unmarried to be in a war party." And then Odd, when she says that, you probably know that the irony is not lost on Odd. That's the fact that she's saying it. And then she continues saying, "Other than the hunting raid that we did a few days hence, have you ever killed a man before?"
As I said the other day, it's not the first time men came into the woods that needed to be stopped.
Have you ever been in a shield war before?
That no shield wall.
And her head turns and she sees Segegnir and she does like a head nod for Segegnir to come over here. And when he does, she says to you, Segegnir, teach her what it means to be in a shield wall. She will need to know.
Segegnir just kind of looks at Estrider, and he would invite her to come and walk with him, or ride, I guess, with him, as they kind of start heading out. You come with me, and I will tell you all that I know. But we must get going. And he would like look to the sky just to see the timing. It's never good to fight when the sun is at its highest, but we might be doing just that. And you can see that he kind of looks a bit, not dismayed, but a bit worried almost, as he looks at all these like villagers, who, yes, they are probably strong, from the odd fight, but they don't have that that finesse, that quick reaction that a warrior would. And you can see that it's quite obvious on his face, Estrider.
Yeah, I think you would know, Segegnir, that like, though the shield wall requires strength, what it requires most is training, and like running it again and again and again, so that you know what to do and you know where to stand and you know like what weapons to use and you know when to push and when to pull, and like it's really about practice. And like you would know that the warriors here would have done it lots of times and they would do it frequently, but like the villagers would not be as well versed. Like they know it in theory, but maybe not in practice.
Yeah, and so as Segegnir and Estrider are kind of, riding side by side, he would tell her all the basics very, very quickly. But I think that most of the journey would be spent telling her just different things that he's learned throughout his fighting escapades. Just like what to do when the person in front of you falls, and what to, how to move, and when to strike, and just all those different tips and tricks and stuff like that.
Don't cross your feet. Stand firm. Stand square.
I was muted, I think, on the OBS. That's good. So you guys can make your way journeying, and nothing is going to hassle a group of this many people. Certainly nothing wild. And like you can march along the roads without fear for like the best part of the day, until just kind of late afternoon. You would see in the distance this village. You would see that there is smoke rising from one of the buildings, though the rest of them seem to be in good condition, and you can see that like from quite a distance away, you would see a man on a horse, like up on a hill, who would see you, and you would also see that they have like built some defenses, like they've put up some walls, dug some ditches and things like that. And this man on the horse, like seeing you, there's no way that this group of people could hide, will like ride back into the village. And then as you kind of like stand there kind of discussing what to do, you'll see three men on horses, although one of them is in a chariot pulled by horses, and he will ride forward on his own, and he has this branch in his hand, a birch branch, and that's like a universal symbol of peace that he wants to parlay rather than fight. So he rides forward with three of his warriors, expecting you to do something similar, like a similar amount of people to move forward rather than meet with all the people.
I think Segegnir would kind of start, and he would look to Oswald and who one of the warriors that was under the Jarl that came.
Thorgeir?
Yeah. And he would look to Odd. He would always leave it up to her whether she wants to come or not.
Odd is intrigued by this chariot, so she will ride with you.
Okay. And he would also look to Estrider and just, might be good for you to come and see what you might be up against. He would not offer the invitation to Theodhilda, however.
Yeah, Estrider would go with.
So you can ride forward and like meet your kind of force up on a hill beyond, and theirs as well. This chariot is an odd thing to see. It's like finely made, and there's like a sort of guard at the front. There's like a man who's like holding the reins of the horses, but then behind him is standing like obviously a lord. He's got this like beautiful armor with sort of gold trimming. He's got like golden arm rings and this long red hair and red beard that's like tied with a golden clasp. He's got this long, longer even than the other sword at his waist, and there are like a number of like spears in the back of the chariot, and he like rides forward standing proud. With him is also on a horse, is a man with this very, very long beard. He wears a hood and like this robe, very unusual too, and rather than a weapon he's got a sickle at his waist. And then there are two warriors who looked sort of similar to the Tuathan warrior you had fought a few days ago. And he will ride up with the branch, and he'll like look you over and say, "It's a good day for the crows."
It is a good day for Odin. You are in his lands, in the lands of his people. What brings you here?
I had every intention of going home, but someone burnt my ship.
It is like to do when raiders come calling. Ships get burned.
Which one of you is in charge? Which one of you is leader of this land?
Osvald will look to Sigagnir.
Sigagnir would just kind of nod, looking at him directly in the eye, and just kind of, the horse would just step forward a few steps. Why are you here? You need to leave.
Good spirit. Interesting. You are... what is the thing they say here? You are Jarl of this place?
No, but I speak on his behalf.
No. Then go and fetch him. I will only deal with someone of equal standing.
You who speaks, who are you?
I'm a prince of the Tuathans.
And this is Sigagnir, chosen of Odin, holiest of warriors. You should bow before him.
He like laughs heartily, and his men do too. Though the old man with the beard does not laugh. His like eyes will like narrow on you.
Sigagnir just gives Oswald the briefest, like, what the fuck look. Like, don't put an even bigger target on my back. But it's just for an instant. I do not care who you are. You are no one in this land, and you are talking with me.
What I am in this land, Sigagnir. He like struggles to say it. His accent doesn't like speak the harsh language as well. What I am in this land is a man who has taken this village. I'm a man who has 30 warriors with him. And he like looks beyond at yours. Looks like you have maybe 10. Beyond that, it looks like slaves. What I am in this land is a prince, as I am in all lands, of a royal bloodline, and I will not deal with peasants like you. Fetch your Jarl, and maybe I'll speak with him.
Odd's horse saunters up, maybe a couple feet or more above Sigagnir's, and the raven jumps to the other shoulder, and it starts pecking on the hilt of the sword that she has strapped across her back. And Odd says in a low voice, Do you know who this sword belonged to?
He looks. Rua.
Rua. And the horse moves forward a little bit closer now. And she looks to the sword on his waist, and then she looks back to him with her one eye. And she will say to him, do you know what Rua said when I killed him?
What did he say?
And the horse gets a little closer to the point where I feel like the warriors at the side will start getting nervous. And Odd won't say a word, right? The horse will just keep getting closer and closer till they move forward to stop her. And then she will just keep staring at this man. And just to the point, like, she's not blinking, to the point that it almost becomes unnerving until she waits for him to say or do anything else.
He like looks and he holds your gaze. He doesn't seem frightened. He does seem a little bit unnerved. And he will like hold the gaze, and then he'll like look at the man next to him, this with the long beard and the sickle, who will say something in their language. And like two of the men will chuckle, and the prince will nod. What did he say?
And then she looks back to Segegnir, and she gives Segegnir the look of when someone is out of place in the shield wall, you stab that person. And it's pretty common in Iskoloth. Jarls don't go to the battlefield because they get stabbed and they die, right? And when you only have two people beside you, that's a big mistake that you make. And she gives you that look. And then she waits for any sign of confirmation from Segegnir whatsoever.
So I think all of you would know that like the breaking of a peace like this is deeply frowned upon. It's like a universal, obviously like cross-country, cross-culture symbol. Like you bring this branch of peace, and while under that branch no violence is done. And if violence is done, then it's like a great dishonor to the person who does it. Which is why obviously he's like cocksure and arrogant, because he knows that it would bring like huge disgrace to like anyone who like breaks the peace. And so he wouldn't even, I don't think, like sense any sort of threat because he'd be so sure.
Yeah, and I think that Segegnir would just like almost briefly just kind of ever so slightly just shake his head at Odd. He wants to keep this as he is extremely superstitious, and he does not want to bring any dishonor or anything like that upon himself any more than he already has. But
he nods at this when you give him the shake, and he would look back to this lord, and she would begin moving the horse away. And then she would say, as she's trotting away from him, you will know by the end of the night.
I have a few situational questions, if that's
Sure.
okay, Lloyd.
Go for it.
What is the area around the village?
So the village is kind of up on a hill, and like you're kind of in the valley between like the tree line that you've come out of, which like leads down into this valley and then back up towards the village. The village itself is on the coast.
So it has access to the waterway?
Yes. Yep. But there's no ships there.
Okay, no ships. Okay. Also, Oswald has an amulet, a Triskelion, I believe. It's the spiraled amulet. Can he determine if there's any sort of value to that beyond its material components?
I think you would know just like by the design and by like the fact that they were all wearing them, is that it's maybe got a similar feel to what the Mjolnir amulet is to Isklanders, like that it's a sacred amulet and that like they would wear it in the Tuathan lands. You would see that like many of the warriors here are wearing them.
Okay. Oswald will sort of edge his horse a little closer to Odd and Segegnir and Strider. We should fight near the water. Lead them to us. We will have advantage there.
They won't leave. They have walls built. And then after saying that, she's going to head back away from this group, back to the original like our group of warriors, and start basically prepping them for what's to come.
The man will say to you, Segegnir, we fortified ourselves and dug ditches, put spikes. If you feel like you need mortality, then you can come and challenge us. Though I prefer to deal with this peacefully if we can do that. I had every intention of going home, but now I can't do that. Someone burnt my ship.
Well, you must know it was us who burned your ship, and it was because you dishonored the dead by taking their oath gold. And so we do not negotiate or do any favors for disgusting. And he just kind of spits on the ground.
So it's war you want then?
And he kind of looks. He says, "It is not I who has chosen war, but you, with your refusal to speak."
He looks back at the two men behind him. Obviously bright warriors with fine weapons and mail. He himself shining with gold and silver. And he looks at yours and the assembled villagers. It will be costly for you. Even if you do win, I'll make sure you die. I think you have something about swords in your hands when you die. You think you will go to some hall. I'll make sure there's no sword in your hand. And he's smiling as he says it.
And I think Sigegner would just share the same kind of grin, and he was just like, somebody already tried to do that. And it didn't work the first time. And so we shall see. And with that, he would just turn.
They would do the same. They would turn back towards the village. And as the chariot rides, he would stand with his arms folded as it rides back and watch you as you return to your people.
You can hear just Sigegner just kind of muttering, just kind of, no good royals think they know everything. Them with their shiny armor that their fathers bought and made for them. And he's just grumbling as they return. And as they do, he's going to kind of gather everyone together. And he's going to speak with them, just kind of telling them what they're going to do, how basically just kind of doing, telling them what he told Astrader, except way condensed. He was going to want the warriors in the front. Because though the villagers are just, inexperienced bodies, the front of the shield wall is the most important. If it breaks, then everyone's dead. So he wants the strongest, the most skilled up. And he's saying, and he's kind of telling the villagers, if somebody falls, you have to get up. You have to maintain that front wall. He says that's the most important. So he's going to speak to them, and he's going to be using his warlord thing where he can speak and then make a persuasion or intimidation check, which I'm thinking persuasion, because he's trying to hype them up. He's trying to reassure maybe all the villagers that they can do this. And so, yeah.
Okay. Yep, you can start to encourage them, and they look fairly confident. They've got a bunch of warriors with them, and they've got Odd and Oswald, who's obviously some sort of magician, and they're taking heart in the fact that the witch is on your side. If you're gonna have a witch, that's where you want her. And so they seem fairly confident, and they will stand in that formation. Now the Tuathans have gone back into the village, and I think you, Sigegner, would know there's no advantage to them leaving that village if they've dug ditches and whatnot. So they'll just wait basically, because they can afford to.
They have the entire village's worth of food and we only have what we brought.
But their houses are made out of like twigs and wood and wattle and daub, right?
So most of the houses in the village would be wood, yeah, and wattle and daub.
All right, so that means wattle and daub especially, but wood also, because it's winter too. I imagine that everything here is particularly flammable.
I mean, yes, but the other thing is that this is a village of the Jarl, and so like destroying it.
Yeah, destroying it would be a problem.
Is a big problem. Yeah.
You did say that some of the villagers that came with had bows.
Yeah.
Are they any good with them, or is that kind of a?
I mean, they're not Astrid good, you know, but they can fire them, sure.
They have a +1, I guess.
They don't have a fighting style.
Odd would approach Thildhild on the back of her horse, and she looks at you, Thildhild, and she says nothing for a moment, and then she says to you, "Can you make the Aesir or the Vanir or something darker still come to this village?"
She nods
Do
after
it.
a brief moment of hesitation.
Sigegnir will not like it. Oswald will not like it. But Odin is with me, and Odin tells me there is nothing to fear from you, and so I tell you this. Do it.
I would need one thing. Many things, actually.
We have thralls, villages, really. We will make sure you have what you need.
I fear that it would not be easy for me to place a curse upon them and their bastion of palisades and barricades.
I do not care if it is easy or if it is hard. If you have to kill one horse or if you have to kill 5 horses. If you have to cut off your own arm or cut off your own neck. Do it.
I think, Theodhild, you would have sensed something from that man with the beard, like a similar kind of power to you. Like a low confidence and like the swirl of spirits.
Yeah, especially so. And how big, wide, in diameter or circumference is this village? Approximately. Or like all the barricaded area, like the.
Yeah.
Is it larger or smaller than the village we come from?
I mean, it's smaller than that, but that's quite a large village. I think like this, you reckon maybe 60 or 70 people would have lived here. It's a couple of 100 feet probably, like in circumference. More even.
Toadhild would ride down from the hill and approach the Gagnir. Cautious at first, giving him much of a distance. And as she talks, the words appear, or the words carry well to you, Gagnir. Can we lure them out?
They have no reason to come out. And so unless there was something, I don't know, we can't do anything to the village. Are people still there? This is the Jarl's village. It doesn't look as though we can.
When do we break for battle? Today or tomorrow? If possible, I would like one night. And in that one night, the battle will be heavily in our favor.
So Gagner just kind of like furrows his brow and it will also give them time. It will get rid of everything, well, anything we possibly had, which wasn't much already, I suppose. How much food did we bring?
Well, I've got 5 loaves of bread, so.
So, in terms of food, you would have brought enough to like feed yourselves on the way here and on the way back. I don't think you were expecting a siege or anything, you know, like you would have just brought enough. and like you wouldn't have a baggage train because it's not really an army, it's really just like a group of people walking, you know, so everyone would carry their own food basically, but I don't think you would have brought like huge reserves or anything like that.
No, okay. The men will survive for a night. That's all you have, though. Morning, we march on the town.
Oswald has been in a few skirmishes, a couple of campaigns. Does the sun set or rise in any sort of advantageous position upon this village, where the sun would be at the back of our warriors and in the eyes of theirs?
It's a good idea. Let me think. You're in the northern coast of Valleyland, so it would rise basically to your right. So if the village is straight ahead of you, it'll rise to the right of the village and set to the west, to the left. So if you like approach the village from a certain side, it would be possible to get the sun in their faces.
Oswald will whisper those words to Zigagner.
Yes, and you were saying that perhaps we should attack from the water.
If we could lead them from their village. If they will cower inside, we must bring the fight to them. The water means nothing then.
Yes, I see no other way. They will not leave.
There's like an outer wall to like this village, like a palisade or something.
Not necessarily a wall. What they've done is they've like in the time they've been here, the few days, they've like dug ditches around it. And you would imagine like some of those are filled with spikes or like traps and things like that. Like the village itself isn't fortified. It's just like still a harder place to assault because of the ditches and whatnot, and like it's naturally up on a hill, you know.
So it's not, and it's not too terribly large. Like about how many, like how wide is it from where we are?
How do you mean, like distance from where you are to the village?
Yeah, no, like how much of a like line are they gonna have to maintain to protect like the entire area? Because if we can get them to come up centralized somewhere, we could send a smaller group somewhere else.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
yeah.
So the from the direction you're looking at, they'll be able to stand between two buildings, which is maybe 60 feet across, and you think they'll easily be able to like fill that with a shield wall, or if they use shield walls in the Tuatha lands, who knows? But like they'll be able to like cover that easily. But then if you like went around the other side, they only have so many warriors. You think that they have like between 30 and 40, so like similar numbers to your own.
And then I'm going to ask the question that nobody else has brought up, but where are the villagers? Have we seen signs of them in any way?
Yes, I guess you would see signs of like villagers inside. You think that they haven't like massacred them, that they've like enslaved them or like enthralled them, something like that.
We must be careful. They have the people.
Question. So because I have the Allfather's messenger ability, I have a raven that can communicate messages. Could I send the raven into the village to give a message to the villagers to basically be ready to like throw hands when we get in there?
It's probably a complicated message for the raven to send, but I don't see why you couldn't try.
Yeah, all right. So I don't know what I would roll, because the only thing I roll for is basically to make it not angry at me, which I don't think I've made it angry at me. So if I had to boil down the message, it'd probably be when Jarl's men come in, you come out, or something like that. Something cryptic enough for them to understand. Get ready to fight when we come in.
I think the raven is like capable of saying the word "ready," for example, something like that. I don't think it could like even speak a sentence necessarily.
Yeah, can't do like a sentence. Yeah.
It should scream "fight" when we attack.
Ready, fight, I think would work.
Yep. So it'll do that. It'll like fly in there, like during the night, and will return. Thankfully.
They would have killed Odin's raven. I think they had bigger issues than me at that point.
During the night, though, as you're like camping, you'll see, like in that gap between the buildings, the man come forward with the sickle, and they've like piled a bunch of wood together, like to make a sort of barrier. And behind that, they have made a sort of just collection of wood and thatch, and they take one of the villagers and they tie him to it, and the man with the sickle, he's like standing in front and he's like looking out. Now we can't see you, it's dark, so unless you have fires that he won't be able to see you, but he's chanting in their foreign language, and like moving like the sickle and his hands in like various poses as he's chanting. Obviously something's happening.
Oswald will go to Astrader, and he is stringing his great bow as he walks to her. This man will be burned, sacrificed to their gods. What can you do with an arrow?
Do many things, but if we kill him from here, well, we might prevent their sacrifice. We'd be dooming him to wander. He would not reach corpse hall.
Can you strike the priest, the bearded man? If he stands in the open to cause a ritual, perhaps it will rain arrows tonight.
About how far is it from like his little setup from where we are?
Especially if they have fire and we're in the darkness.
So I think between where you are and they are, there's like a couple of 100 feet, maybe like 500 or 600 feet. Like it's a pretty significant distance. The slope over the hill goes up maybe 90 or so feet. You know, not a super heavy incline, but it's still an incline. And at the top there, they've piled the wood or whatever. It'd be hard to shoot because you're shooting upwards. They're not impossible.
And it would also have to, you know, sneak closer.
Yes, I think so. To get a reasonable shot, I would say so.
Okay. So while I'm confident with my own abilities, I don't know if I could take out or take down one of their foul priests in a single go. If we want to disrupt the ritual, it might be better to not let him kill that man the way he wants. But like I said, he would not reach Valhalla.
The chant gets louder, and you can hear it pretty clearly from where you are. There's something like fell about the voice that like carries perfectly. This like oh, and you can hear like others chanting, and you can hear like the of like spears against the dirt, and a fire is lit.
I will do it if you tell me to, holy man.
Oswald has strung his bow. He's grabbed as many arrows as he could in one hand, and he has etched the rune of Rado upon his hand that he draws his first fletching, the first arrow. I do not prefer the bow. This man is doing fell magic in our land. Odin will see him dead, or he will spare this man. Either way, I will not stand by and do nothing. And so for the next few rounds, Oswald has advantage on attacks as he can see the skeins of fate. And he will approach boldly.
Well, he's going. I'm going to go.
And he will walk as straight and as quick as he can towards whatever safety he thinks he can find with a clear line of sight on this priest, the bearded man from Tuatha. And he will fire.
Okay, so you creep forward as the fire begins to like lick up, and you can hear the man who's like tied shouting in pain as the fire begins to burn him, and you can hear the man still chanting, and the others of the Tuathan people there like banging spears against the dirt or against their shields, and yeah, you can get close enough and make some shots. You can make an attack each.
All right. So this is advantage with the skeins of fate.
I'll have advantage because this druid hasn't acted yet.
Mm-hmm.
14 and an 18, and I have a +5 with the bow. So that's a 23 or for the highest.
Okay.
Bonus action quarry.
Sure.
And 21 to hit.
Okay. Yep. Those are both hit.
And then see, what did I choose? Okay.
That's 7 on the die, so 10 for me.
Okay.
Ooh, 8 and a 5 on my dice. So that's 13 plus 3, 16 points of damage.
Okay. So the two arrows both hit. One will catch him in the shoulder and the other like in the side. And he'll like stumble in his chant for a moment. And then we'll continue it, and you'll hear this like of like people rushing forward, and you'll see like 10 Tuathan heads like pop over the barricade, and they'll like look and search for you. Can you each give me a stealth, please?
Oswald is not hiding.
Okay.
She's still in the darkness, so like.
Yeah, they have fire with them, and he has darkness. So he's hoping with that and the Skeins of Fate, he will be fine.
That's an 18 for a strider.
Okay. So they can't see you directly, but nonetheless, they're just going to throw spears into the darkness, because. So 1, 2. Oh, jeez. Okay, so all these spears thrown with like insane strength will like rain down around you. Some of them like way far away from you, but some of them will land really close to where you are. Of the 10 that were thrown at disadvantage, one of them will connect. And let's see who it is actually. That's old. So one of these spears sails through the darkness and will do 7 points of piercing, just grazing you as like these spears land around you.
Oswald, his AC without a shield is 18, and you did the disadvantage already, you said?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
It was like a 24.
Cool. All right, I take 7.
Yes, sir. So the spears begin to rain down, and the man continues his chant, and you can see like some of the warriors come and step up and like hold shields out in front of him, and like his chanting will like reach this fever pitch, and you can hear the man screaming as he like burns, until finally there is no more screaming. I don't know what you guys want to do. Do you want to stay where you are? It looks like they're not coming out. Though there are now a number of men at the barricade with like spears ready and like looking in the darkness.
Yes, Astrader's like looking towards Asval to see like getting ready to shoot again.
So the shaman, he took the 2 arrows and just barely flinched?
He's still alive. I mean, he took the arrows, but he didn't die. You think like it hurt him.
You don't, and it did not interrupt the ritual.
It did, but he then, like, rather than do anything else, he continued it afterwards. He did stumble in his speech, but now there are warriors in front of him with their shields raised.
Okay. If he's not a target anymore, Oswald will back away, taking the dodge action as he moves back, and he will pull Astrader with him.
Is it, if you want to stop the ritual, we can kill the man before he completes it.
I think he already said that the man had stopped screaming.
Oh,
it's too late.
All right.
Yeah, I think like in the like after you had shot, the men came forward with the shields, and like in the time that they were like throwing or whatever, the man continued chanting, and the fire had like consumed the sacrifice.
Yeah, Oswald will retreat using the dodge action, because shooting arrows at a shield is not going to do nothing for anyone. Once he's back to safety, he will try and wound Wise himself as best he can. We tried.
Yeah, you would hear like music and singing coming from their camp.
And he will look to the witch. I do not like what you do. This place, this land, it is strange to me. The things are strange to me. But these people, they are stranger. Do unto them what you would do to the worst. Do unto them what the gods will not agree with. And he'll turn his back and walk as far away from the witch as he can.
I planned so. And she fetches a horse, not her own, but some other Pursad's horse, and leads it beyond the tree line, beyond out of sight of these warriors, to not demoralize them, just beyond somewhere, maybe even the coast, where the lapping waves touch these hard rocks. And throughout the night, she sings to the horse, paints many symbols upon the horse, and does a ritual which takes the majority of the night, and we'll see what happens in the morn.
So the night kind of continues. Sorry, wound wise does not heal. It's like a medicine check basically. It doesn't like heal you of wounds. So unless you have a way to like heal the wounds otherwise. Throughout the night you can hear this like singing coming from the village. It seems like they're celebrating something. Maybe it's that sacrifice. And it's hard to sleep with like the drums and the music and the looming threat of these people, these like foreign and strange people beyond. And then dawn would come.
I don't think that Sigegnir would sleep the entire night. He would just be awake, sitting by the fire, running over again and again different ways to come at this village and just kind of drawing odd just shapes, like the rough shape of a town, and just trying to find a way to not have them all die. Eventually he would just kind of get up and has Theodhild returned?
So yeah, as you get up, as you're drawing these pictograms in the dirt with your sticks, Theodhild would kind of appear illuminated from the front by the flickering flame. She holds her distaff in both hands. She's quiet, waiting for you to either notice her or not to interrupt you. But as you see her, she would nod to you and take a step closer.
I do not know what you have done. I do not want to know. But have you done it?
I wish for you to give me a brief moment, a warning, a cue, a sign, a signal, moments before we plan to strike. And in that few moments, I'll fill them. Well, I dare not say what will happen. It will not be pleasant. But fear not, for it will curse only their men, not ours.
And the people in the village?
They will be safe.
He just kind of nods. He doesn't meet Theodhild's eyes. He just kind of is still just squiggling in the snow on the ground. Very well.
And so Theodhild stands atop some hill where a lonely tree sits, looking down upon the camp where Sigegnir and his men are all camped. She looks down, waiting for a signal. She looks to her other side and sees but a horse chewing on some grass. It's hard to see what it looks like in this cover of night, but it has some strange things upon it.
I am always hungry before a battle, Odd would say to Estrella, the morning before the actual battle itself. She's sitting there, standing beside this tree, very close to where Estrella's camp would be. And I imagine it might be weird for Odd to randomly start making small talk with you, Estrella. She's not wearing her bone mask over her face, and so you can see clearly the scar on the side of her head. And she's looking down to you with her one eye.
I think I have something if you're hungry.
It is best not to eat. When you're fighting another man in the shield wall, you will throw up. And when you throw up, it will be very bad. You will slip on the vomit and you will be stabbed. I've seen it done many times. But I am still very hungry. It is annoying. Sigegnir and the other men, they don't boast about this. They act like to be in the shield wall is amazing. It is to be glorious, but there is no real glory to be found in the shield wall, only when it breaks and when men start dying. And so they are not eager to admit that they are hungry, that they are scared, that they are pissing themselves. Sigegnir, he has bad bowels, bad bladder. Happens a lot. And Aw doesn't smile when she says this, which I just make it kind of weird that she says it to you, Stritter. But she says it as if expecting you to say something in return.
No, I think she kind of like snickers at the thought of Sigegnir having nervous nervous bells because completely unlike what the warrior she knows or whatever. And so if there's no honor in the shield wall, then why do they fight in one?
It is effective and is a good pathway to dying with a weapon in your hand. I was your age, Astrid, when I fought in my first shield war. A young woman. I'd already lost my eye by then. It is very difficult to fight in a shield wall without an eye. Very difficult indeed. I will need you.
I was going to say it's hard to keep watch on the person.
Very true. Normally Segegnia stands in that spot, but he will be the commander for this, and he'll be unable to. I would like it to Studio if you could be there.
It would bring me honor to be part of your shield. Odd.
You do not need to speak to me like I am the Jarl. You do not need to speak to me like I am a Galdir or even a Skag. I am not a woman who has much honor from others. I do not get much respect for others unless I'm tearing off somebody's head. That's why I've gotten so good at tearing off people's heads. But you do not need to talk to me like that.
I'll keep that in mind then.
I dreamt of you. After the Skag healed my face, Odin sent me a vision of you.
What did your vision tell you?
And she stares at you for a moment. And then when she opens her mouth to speak, there's like a shadow over her face. And she says, Odin sent me 2 visions. One that I could see with my good eye, and one that I saw with my stone eye. The first vision is of you killing the man with the sickle in his hand. That was a good vision. And that's one only a few of us die. But the other vision, the vision I saw with my other eye, has you joining my cloak. And when she says that, she moves the leathers to the side, and you see the bones hanging from her naked flesh underneath.
And then Astrid wouldn't be able to repress the shiver there that those words bring. Then I hope for the first one.
I too hope the first one, but dissuaded. You must tell me this. How long do you think your father has for this world?
He's been sick for a long time. Every time I go out for a hunt, I always wonder if he'll still be there whenever I come home.
Was your father a warrior in his youth?
He was the hunter before me. That's where I learned everything.
What would he do if you died?
There's no one else that cares for him. If I died, he would probably die alone in that hut.
I see.
No one to make sure that he has a weapon in his hand.
Odd nods at this, and then she pulls something out from inside her fur cloak, and she throws it to you. And when you catch it, you're going to smell the faint smell of piss coming from it. And she's going to say to you, Astrid, when I scream out your name, throw it as hard at my face as you possibly can.
I will strike true, Odd.
And she has something that might be a smile or might be a frown. You can't tell. And then she's going to walk away.
There's a commotion, and you can see a villager running from the barricade, and you can hear this chanting in their language. And the villager's running and is looking back, and then you can see the various heads pop over the barricade, and spears rain down. Some of them miss, most of them miss and fall close, but then one of them goes right through the villager's left side, and spins him around, and he lands into the dirt. And then there's like a call from inside, and then another villager is like let loose in a same, and there's like a chant again, and spears begin to rain.
About how far away are we from the village?
At least 500 feet, probably more.
They are baiting us. Odd would say to Segegnia. Or they are doing a ritual, or both.
Feel as though they are trying to force us to attack before we are ready, before we are prepared.
Already prepared.
And he kind of, like, during all this time, as the men and women have kind of gotten up, he's kind of helped everyone out who needs it, just making sure that they know, just like holding a shield and just going through people and just kind of talking them, giving them small words of wisdom and all that as he makes his way back. And so he looks to you, Odd, and he's ready as we will be.
And she pulls a shield from her back. And she looks to you, and she affixes the bone half-mask to her face. And she waits for you to give the order for the shield wall. The march.
And Zegegnir would kind of situate himself in the middle of this group. And he would say, "It is time. It is time we send these foreigners back. It is time we teach them the will and the strength of our men." And he would kind of nod at the warriors who would know that that is the time to just start getting into formation.
They'll do so, and you can get into the shield wall. Close as lovers to everybody next to you. Just this crush, this like awful closeness as like shields overlap, and people you can like smell the breath of the man next to you, and you can begin the of like the walk, the very slow march towards their encampment.
As just before they begin to march, I imagine that the sun is coming up and it's bright, just in that kind of horizontal way. It's just very close, and so you would hear a call, just a yell from Zegegnir as he raises his sword and tries to shine it on the light as a signal to Theodhild.
She sees this as she's leaning against the tree. And she gets up, alert, stands, legs apart, her distaff in both hands. Thump, thump, thump. She does it 7 times. And from the coastline comes galloping this horse. A horse that's covered in some large blanket. And atop it are bundles of sticks and straw and hay and grasses that have all been tied together and fastened, and loose clothing kind of fitted across it. It looks like some kind of scarecrow or person. It could pass for a person from the distance. And this horse comes galloping, and it holds atop its head, makeshiftly, some branch of some tree. A birch, perhaps, as this horse gallops towards this barricade, this village of Tuathans.
There would be shouts of alarm, and like men would climb the barricade and ready spears and to throw at this horse that approaches with a rider seemingly on top. And the shield wall's moving across the plain, across the valley, and then up the slope. Now it's about 90 feet. It's going to be difficult terrain, as it's like pretty steep as you're like pushing your way up, and the spears begin to fall, and we roll initiative.
I imagine the enemy initiative is gonna be like, oh, just a bunch of Irish names, like 40 Irish names in the side chat.
Is that everybody? Theotild, Astrid, Odd, Siggy. Yeah. Okay, so the horse is galloping towards the barrier, and the shield wall's moving its way up the muddy, snowy hill. And you can see inside all these people, these spear throwers, ready to go. But Theotild, you're first to act.
And so this horse, I imagine, as it just gallops towards him closer and closer, is it able to make it to the front line of this village?
Yes, I think that they would definitely be throwing spears, but I think it will make it.
I just imagine this horse is galloping and galloping with only one goal in its mind, a goal put there by Theotild, and I imagine it leaps, and it crosses whatever moat, whatever ditch is dug, and it flies and it leaps over these sharpened sticks of a barricade and lands dead center at beyond this wall. It's surrounded by all these warriors with spears pointed at it. The deception of the straw man atop the horse now broken easily. And as the horse, it rears up and whinnies, and its hooves extend and kind of flail about like horses do when they're scared. Probably one of these spearmen can easily, stab it or something. And when it does, in this chaos, the straw man falls off. The blanket falls off. And the flesh of this horse is revealed to be covered in paintings and drawings of snakes winding up and down its body. Multiple lacerations take the place of its skin. Its mane has been cut off. It's almost gaunt and skeletal. And as it stabs and is impaled by this spear, snakes slither out of its lung hole. And these snakes, just hundreds of them pile out. And this is essentially my sacred place, I guess would be unsacred place, instilling fear into the hearts and minds of all of these warriors.
Okay, that's rad. What is the DC?
It's DC of 13. If they pass, they're not frightened, but they need to make a saving throw at the beginning of each of their turns.
Okay. So, because of the druid, they have advantage on saves against fear. Nonetheless, the woodkerns still are afraid, though the more powerful or more experienced warriors among them, with the druid's encouragement, seem to be mostly able to resist. Though you do see people shouting and screaming and pointing, what on earth is happening, and many of the woodkerns and those throwing spears will sort of involuntarily run away or step away from the barricade in the face of this thing. Astrid.
Okay, so I'm in the shield wall, so I can't really use my bow and arrow, and we're not within range of really doing anything just yet, right?
Yep, I mean, you could throw something if you were inclined. Probably, I don't think you could use a bow and arrow in the shield, but you can definitely throw a spear or something.
I don't think I have one
Okay.
to throw.
Well, what you can do is, if you want to do ready in action to see if they smash into you guys, something like that.
Would ready a dodge action?
You can just
I guess, or
you can just take a dodge. You can just take a dodge.
Or
action.
if I did the help action, would that aid Odd in any kind of attack that she might make or I don't know because that's protection fighting style, which I don't have. Yeah, I'll just take the dodge action and move the wall.
Yep. So the wall is, and there's like this smell, and you can like hear the men behind you like very very nervous as they like approach. You can hear some of them just like muttering, "Odin, protect me! We're Tyr!" like shouting for the gods. Okay, Rory Diarric, this like lord amongst them, steps forth. He's got this like shining mail and a sword. He like looks across the various warriors and is like disgusted at their cowardice. He'll like grab the spear off one of these fleeing warriors and he's going to throw it at the shield wall. So because you're in the shield wall, he's going to have disadvantage on this. But we'll try nonetheless to strike at the shining helmet of Sigegnir. He's still going to hit. It's going to be an 18. I don't know if that gets you. Nope.
18 doesn't get me, no.
Okay, perfect. So he like this like amazing throw, much better than it should have been. Still will like just glance over some of the shields. If those shields weren't there and the man next to you wasn't holding it, that would have gone right to your face, you think. But for now, it just and bounces off. He will then move up to the barricade, draw his sword, hold it in both hands, and be ready. Sigegnir, it's your turn.
Sigegnir says a quiet thanks to Thor, and he's going to ready an action for as soon as they get up and as soon as people are able to fight. Two of them are going to be able... oh no, sorry. Yes, two people are going to be able to attack using their reaction.
Okay, yep, excellent. Odd.
One of Odd's 3 spears explodes from within the shield wall as she hurls it through it. Directly at Rodri, I have a 24 to hit for 8 points of damage.
Okay, excellent.
As she throws this, she looks to you, Astrida, and she says underneath her breath, "When the shield wall breaks, I'm going for the one that is golden. That is when you fill the jar."
And then I'll try to make your vision come true and shoot him with my bow.
Okay. Some of these wood cairns like step up from behind the barricade. They are afraid, so they'll have disadvantage. From you guys, I think you would have like moved basically on Sigegnir's turn. Is what I'm assuming is that when it's Sigegnir's turn, you're moving. So at this stage, you would be 60 feet away still from them. So unless like you took a dash or something, you know, you're still quite far away because it's hard getting up that hill. They're going to throw just a whole bunch of spears. That one like misses dramatically, like into the dirt near the shield wall. This one also. That one also. That shield wall, yo, good call. Okay, so they all miss. They all just like thunk into shields and like bounce over the top, and they're unable to like get through this wall of shields. And then a great many more of them like pop up, and there's like this rain of spears, like as a skirmish line fires. And I will need all of you to make me a dex save, please. Except for Theodhild, who's not in the shield wall, I think. Yeah.
Trigger Sigegnir's fang that makes 2 of us attack.
Yes, I think that might have to be a melee attack. I'm not sure.
Oh.
It just says make an attack
As
using their
okay.
reaction.
Perfect. Yep, go for it then.
Sick. Alright, so I'm going to have a unnatural dirty 20 on another spear throw.
Okay.
And that's going to be doing 7 plus 3, so 9 points of damage. Still on the Lord, the Prince.
Yep. This is not the prince. The prince.
Oh, okay.
So the prince is not visible here. This Rory is like one of the 2 shining warriors who was with him. Though the prince himself doesn't seem to be standing here with the rest of them.
I'm still going to try and hit one of these shining warrior.
Yeah. Same guy as
Is
before,
the
right?
Druid in the group that's ahead of us?
Yeah, he's like standing behind the rest, and he's like chanting and trying to encourage them.
Oh, could I hit the druid?
Anir?
I think you'd have disadvantage to hit the druid because he's still quite far away from you.
Let me roll again then. Actually, no, I'll just stick it on the golden warrior.
Okay.
Is he Nwada or is he Lokra or
So the
Driad-
druid is Driador.
Driador?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an awesome name. I had
Um,
no hope of pronouncing that on my own before he said it.
Okay, so if you got below a 14, then you will take 6 points of piercing damage as a spear like grazes you or like smashes through the shield and like hits you in the arm, something like that, as like this rain of spears just rains down. You can now hear as you are like behind you the of horses, and you can see that like doing a big arc behind you is this prince with his chariot. He's like maybe 100 feet back. He's got his sword high in the air, like moving around behind as quickly as he can.
Is it just the prince?
Yes.
Oh, sick. All right, cool.
I was just about to ask, can I see the chariot anywhere?
Yep, he's come around behind for some hammer and anvil bullshit. So that's him. So he's about 100 feet away still on the chariot. Eikholm is like this very, very large man. He's the bigger of the two warriors. He is going to grasp his sword in both hands, and he's going to stand next to the other one. And then the two of them are going to begin running down with a bunch of the other warriors towards the shield wall. They'll move 30, so you'll have to move 30 on your turn to get to them. And they're like charging and screaming, and he on the way down will throw a spear. Oh, damn. So even with disadvantage, it's going to be a 24. Jesus. That's going to be on you, Siggy, as you're the captain.
Yep, that's it.
You wear a shiny helmet, you get killed.
Yep.
That's going to be 11 piercing.
That's with a melee weapon, right? He swing. No, he
No, he
throws it right.
threw a spear. Yeah.
Okay. 7. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, that was Leakra. The druid, Driador, is like standing at the back, and you can like hear him chanting. He's going to use his action to encourage the men, which will allow them to re-roll their damage dice if they roll a 1. And Oswald.
So we had a bit of a march up this hill, right? And I think it was last session you mentioned that Oswald could perhaps draw the rune and but kind of hold the magic for a moment before igniting it or setting it. So Oswald will have all of his runes in place, and we never really had the scene where Odd got the sword, but I was thinking that Oswald may have drawn the rune of Kanaz on the blade before Odd had taken it.
Perfect.
Seeing how Sigagner fought, seeing how Sigagner was sort of more of a leader than a front line, he's decided to try and test fate in this way. And so he's going to hold an action to set his runes. He's got the
Einherjar's blade, right?
Blade and in his own weapon, and the Kanaz in odds. And so that's what he's going to do with his turn and his reaction, is have those ready.
Okay.
And he would actually probably turn and how far away is the chariot?
From where you are at the front of the shield wall, it's like 120 feet away, if not further.
Okay.
So he's gone like basically around the back of the village, and he's like doing a big loop so he can get a good run up.
Yeah, so there's something that needs to be done here. Oswald will he'll take out his great spear. So he has this massive spear. He hasn't used it yet, but he'll take that out, and he's actually going to move away from the shield wall and prepare himself for this chariot, attempting to get in the way of the chariot and the rest of the troops.
Okay.
And so he's going to brace for this chariot, looking to shuttle left or right as needed to block it.
Sounds perfect. Okay, so you step out of the shield wall and hold this great spear with the rune emblazoned upon it.
I don't see any other way for us to deal with this thing, so he's going to just sacrifice himself for these 30 other people. Because that chariot will make mincemeat of this entire group.
Definitely. Seeing you step out of the shield wall, one of the wood kerns is going to like zero in on you, and he's going to throw a spear at you. Unsurprisingly, it's going to be a 19 on the die, so almost certainly a hit. For 11 piercing as a spear. Like the second you step out of the shield wall and move away from the protection, there's just this and a spear like smashes into the back of you. Back to the top with Theodhild.
Theodhild sees the chariot from her kind of hilly vantage point coming around the flank. From her, how far is it?
That's a good question. It's probably between you and them. So if it's 120 from them, it's like 300 feet from you.
Okay, cool.
Well, assuming you stayed where everyone else had been like the night before, you know, because that's what I imagined. Yeah.
She would make her way down the hill, grabbing the reins of her own horse, mounting it, and beginning to ride towards the shield wall and the whole battlefield.
Sure.
With her distaff in hand. And these snakes are more than just snakes on this top of the hill in the village. And they cause these phantasms of haunting faces and eldritch voices to haunt the minds of those who are feared by them. Just this very perplexing, very, very, very strange and horrifying fear as they hiss and they dance.
Yeah, and you can tell that there, even from this distance, that there is a great amount of like awe. Although you think maybe less fear than you might see with like Isklanders. Like maybe they're more used to this kind of thing. Like not literally this, but like that they're more used to magic. And like are expecting it more than others might be. But nonetheless, you can definitely see like many of the spearmen have like literally just run away from the area. Astrid.
So how far is the prince on his chariot?
From you, he's about 120 feet, I think.
Okay, good. And so she's going to shout in Odd's ear and say the prince is behind us, and basically kind of get permission to drop the shield to draw her bow. So she's going to like turn around and drop to a knee and try and shoot the prince.
Okay.
Marking him. No, wait, he's more than 90 feet, so I can't do quarry. I need to remember there's a range on that. So just going to be hitting him with an arrow, hopefully. 17 on the dice plus 7 for 24.
24 will hit.
Okay, and so I'm going to use my marksman trick to create an opening. And so all of my allies until the end of the start of my next turn are going to have advantage against the prince.
Perfect. Nice.
And so that will be only 5 points of damage.
Okay.
But he's going to get an arrow to the face.
So he's like holding on to the chariot with like his sword high, and then this arrow hits him, and you see him like stumble for a moment, though he like holds on and is able to stay in the chariot. But nonetheless, not as steady as he was before. Rory Jarrig is going to like run forward into the shield wall. He's going to like lift his huge sword, and he's going to try and smash into it. And he's going to make his attacks. Let me open up the bad guy doc. Here we go. Okay, so he rushes forward with his sword and is going to swing. Okay, and okay, so Siggy, he rushes forward and he's going to try and swing at you, and he I think will do so successfully twice with a 20 and a 19.
Yes, he's going. Sigegner is going to try and parry one of those attacks.
Excellent. Yep.
Again. That's 19.
So I think what you need to do is like match what he got, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah. It only says if it exceeds it. So.
Okay. So then I think it'll still go through because he got a 9. Well, he got a 19 and a 20. I wrote this game. Good call. Yep. I don't know. Sure. I think meet or exceed, which is always the case with AC. So we'll say it works. So like the first strike is like batted to the side, but he like moves really quickly and like brings the slash across. with the second, and you would think you'd have dice ready. Go. So it'll be 8 slashing damage. As he smashes into the wall and roars, and it's your turn.
So Gagnir is going to attempt to take his shield and just shove him back, enabling the other 2 on his sides.
To make an opportunity attack.
Yep. So is that just strength?
Yep. It's like an athletics, I guess, contested.
Okay.
So your DC is 14.
Okay. I got a 14.
Okay, perfect. So you're the aggressor. You like shove with the shield, and he steps back. So I'll say Odd definitely is on one side of you. I don't know on the other side. I'll just make it Thorgeir, since Asvald has stepped out of the shield wall, and so has Astrid.
Sick. So I rolled it. I have a 19 plus 5 to hit, so it's going to be a 24, for a total of 14 points of damage. As the sword, my own sword, the Tuathan blade, snakes out to slash at this guy.
Nice. Yep, it slashes him in the forearm, and it's like this deep cut, and he like steps back, and Thorgeir crits him with his spear. So that's unfortunate.
Also,
Get him,
Odd,
boo.
your blade bursts into flames. You get an
Oh.
additional 1d6 damage.
Sick. Okay, so that's going to be 18 points of damage to that guy.
Okay. Okay, so Thorgeir shoves his spear into the guy's shoulder, dealing 11 points of damage, and then I gotta roll me some dank tables.
He didn't roll a 1 on his damage dice, right? Because he gets to re-roll those because of Odd.
So reroll them because of Odd?
Yeah, it's just that
No,
thing.
because
It's like Gagnir.
Siggy.
Oh,
right?
Sigagnir. Sorry. I knew it was because of somebody.
No, I didn't get it.
Marquise is the one that's always reminding us to chat, so I figured it was Odd.
He rolled a 4 and a 3.
Dang.
Well, if you subtract one from the other, it's a 1. So
That's really not how this works.
Are you sure?
Okay, so it's on the body, it's piercing, and it's a 4. Okay, that's not great for him. He's gonna make a save. He does. Okay, so you see Thorgeir like shove the spear into this guy's shoulder, and it like comes out the other side, though he has this vice grip on his sword and like doesn't drop it as the spear is pulled out, and he stands opposite you. Okay, that was Sigagnir's turn, right? Yeah. Yeah, because you shoved, and then everyone else got to do stuff. That's how the Herseer's turn always goes. It's the deeply confusing thing about it. It's like, it's my turn, and everyone else does stuff. Odd.
I'll look over her shoulder real quick. Does she think the chariot will reach us on the next turn, like before she can do anything else?
No,
Okay,
that's too
perfect.
far.
Then she's going to commit to slaughtering this golden red-headed heretic that she's been killing so far. So the 18 on the die, so plus 6 to that is going to be a 24.
Yep.
And then for the damage, it's going to be 10 plus 5 plus 3, so 18 more damage.
Let me do some math. He's still up.
Mm.
So the sword slashes into him, and there's like some of the chain links on his mail like break, and you can see like the slash across his chest, though he still stands for now. That was odd. One of the woodkerns, frightened, is going to throw a spear at you, Astrid.
Is disadvantage because he's a feared, right?
I was rolling with disadvantage, and of course I dropped the die. It wouldn't be one of my games unless I did that. Okay, he gets a 14, which probably misses you.
Which, yeah, misses even without the shield.
Yeah, so he and the spear just like thuds into the ground next to you. You know you're being targeted, but he misses. Then a rain of spears from within. I'll need all of you to make me a dex save, except for Theodhild.
That's better. 15 for Astrid this
Okay.
time.
Asvald also moved his turn away from the shield wall. Is he part of it?
Yes, it's basically the whole hill that they're covering. Okay, Siggy. I've just taken to calling you Siggy. I don't know where that came from, but it's just easier than saying Sigagnir every time.
You're welcome.
So it's going to be 7 points for you, Siggy, as a spear connects with your arm and like slashes into the forearm there. The rest of you got above a 14, so you are okay. That was spears. Okay, Noada on the chariot. You can hear him singing now as he's getting closer. He's actually quite close to you, Theodhild, and he can see you behind because you would have moved with your horse 120 feet, I think, with a dash. He's going to pick up a spear and throw it at your horse. Yeah, so that's a crit on the horse. It's 15, which I think kills the horse.
Probably, yeah.
I think a horse is 12. So he's like galloping, and he can hear like your horse galloping behind, and he's like holding on to the side of the chariot, and he'll like turn and like pick up a spear, and he'll like do this like very dramatic move where he'll like turn and just throw, and the spear you think will miss you, and it does, but it does not miss your horse. It'll get it like right in the front of the chest, and it'll like and just fall. I'll need you to make a dex save, please, Theodhild.
Theodhild screams, not of perhaps a combination of rage and sadness, as the horse gets impaled by this spear, as if she felt the pain for her own. This is her horse, not just any horse, but hers. My dexterity save is a natural 20 for a total of 22.
Okay, so then you'll land like without killing yourself, which is a real concern when you fall from a horse. You'll like land and like roll with it rather than like taking any damage. You'll be okay. But the horse just like stumbles, and as it like stumbles, it stumbles onto the spear and is truly impaled, and it dies in a couple of breaths. And you can see him just barreling as he turns back around to look at the shield wall. Scroll up to find this initiative. Okay, Lairkra is going to rush forward. He's going to see that Odd is the one doing most of the slaughter here, and he's going to try and target her with his attacks. Okay, so your AC is 20, Odd?
20, yes.
Okay, so he'll hit once.
Alright.
It's going to be for 10 points of slashing. As he like brings the sword down, he'll block most of them, but one of them will cut into the forearm, just under your hand. That's going to be his turn. The Dreador is going to chant forward. He's going to move forward and like raise the sickle, and he's going to point as he like chants with two fingers. He's going to point at you, Odd, and I will need you to make me a wisdom save, please.
That's my best save. All right, let's do this. All right, so it's going to be a 16 on the die plus 5, so it's going to be 21.
Okay, nice. So you can feel this like strange magic like tingling at the back of your brain, this profane nonsense from another land, and your faith in the Allfather is renewed, and you shake off whatever effect it was going to be. It's going to be his turn. Oswald.
This is a huge weakness of mine as a player. The whole theater of the mind. I usually use tables and grids and maps. Where's the chariot now?
Okay, so it's moved 60. So it's another 60 away from where you are.
Okay.
So it'll get there. Sorry, it'll get there next turn. Like it's moving 60 a turn. You would see that.
Yeah. Okay, because then it attacks Theodhild. That's why I was kind of like.
Yeah, but Theodhild had moved and like dashed towards it, and he threw a spear.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Oswald will advance on the chariot again, trying to sidestep whatever direction it's taking to stay between it and the shield wall. He's bleeding profusely. He's got 2 very severe wounds from spears. Clutching this great spear in his hand with the etchings of the Allfather all along the haft of it. And he believes he is going to die in this battle. And with that, he will enact his newest rune that he has gleaned from the Allfather's wisdom, Raidho, giving himself advantage and enemies disadvantage for the next 3 rounds.
Sick.
And he will stand braced to meet the chariot with this long spear. I'm assuming a great spear has some length to it.
Yeah, it's like a pike, I think. Something like that.
Right, that's what I was imagining. He's got the butt end of it kind of braced down into the dirt behind him.
Perfect. One of the woodkerns is going to pop up and throw at Astrid with disadvantage because he's terrified. That might actually do it. A 16.
16 will hit because I don't have my shield up.
Glory. It's going to be 9 points of piercing from the spear. So you're like, I imagine, turned around. You're like firing shots towards this chariot, and then the spear just like maybe knocks you forward as it like grazes your shoulder. That was the last woodkern. Back to the top. Thiodhild.
Thiodhild is kneeling, and she gets up. She dashes over, in a swift stride to the corpse of her horse. She feels the last warm breath on her hand from the nostrils. She looks up, her eyes no longer her own, but those of amber, a deep amber, as she looks upon the man who felled her horse. She grips one of the ankles, the hooves, the legs, the front leg of this horse in her 2 hands. I need this prince man to make a Constitution saving throw, please.
It's gonna be 17.
All right. With my 2 hands, I snap the front leg of my horse as if it were a small twig. This prince would feel something, but no pain nothing severe happens to him, but he gets the impression that something might do it.
Yeah, I think he can feel like a shiver of fear, and like the hair on the back of his neck would stand up as he's like turned his back on what he knows to be like what he would call a druid, like a holy person and an unholy person at the same time, and he would like feel a deep fear, though he keeps his eyes forward on the prize that he sees ahead. Okay, that was Thiodhild. Astrid.
Was Odd yelling for the jar?
Yeah, she would have yelled for the jar the moment the sword cut into her.
Yeah, and so I assume that will be her action then, will be to slam the jar of piss at the back of Odd.
When you throw the jar and it explodes, it's actually mainly this white powder. Probably piss interlaced into it because of the smell.
Oh,
It's
okay.
this white powder that will just completely cover Odd, like hiding her from view for a moment.
All right, and then as my bonus action, just because I have one, I'm going to mark Rory as my quarry, and then going to pick up my shield just to kind of get in. Like, I think someone had like took my spot, because if the villagers did what Sigegnir said, like someone would have come up and filled that next to Odd, and so she's got her shield up and she's like behind Odd, like ready to take her spot whenever she leaves the shield wall.
Perfect. Yeah, like the walls have met definitely, like, and you can see like the warriors from your village fighting the warriors from the Tuathans, and there's like slaughter being dealt all around, but the center of their wall is where Leokra and Ruri are, these like 2 great warriors who are battling against Odd and Sigegnir. Okay, Ruri's gonna have one last go, most likely, as he barely breathes. He's gonna try and take down Odd. But bottles both of his swings and his pommel strike. So he's clumsy, and you can see he's like pale from loss of blood. And you, Odd, now with like the battle rage upon you, are easily able to like dodge out of the way or like take the blows that do not hit with the force that are necessary. Sigegnir.
Sigegnir would turn to Odd beside him. Just say, make sure this breath is his last, and he does not have a sword in his hand. And that is finish him. So Odd, next time you hit the guy, you do additional damage, 5 of 5.
All right, perfect.
Okay, perfect. And it's your turn, Odd.
Odd is shaking as his powder falls over her. It's completely dyed her face. It's covering a lot of her wound. She can't trig it all completely this turn, only because Siggy is giving her an order, and she will always follow his orders. So with a dirty 20, she lashes out with that burning Tuathan sword again, and she's going to be doing 15 points of damage to this guy.
Okay, did you add the stuff from Sigegnir?
Oh, sorry. And what am I adding again for me,
5.
Siggy? 5. Okay, so it's going to be a total of 20 points of damage.
That's going to kill him for sure.
Perfect. I imagine as the sword lashes out, like he goes to parry it, but he's just one heartbeat too slow.
Yeah.
Maybe if he had a better meal, if he slept better last night, he would have been fine. But he's too slow, and the blade comes back, and as it comes back, his head rolls past her feet.
Yeah, he like his body will like thunk onto its knees and like forward into the muck, and you can like step over it and move forward as the people behind you like step as well.
I imagine actually Odd would fall back and like a villager, maybe two villagers, because she requires two villagers like to have it like her spot. Will step forward and take her spot in the shield wall as she falls to one knee to begin triggering the battle rage.
Perfect. Yeah, they'll step forward past you, and they can smell piss not just from like the potion that you've been thrown, but also just from like the fear and the stink sweat here in the shield wall. One of these woodkerns, little bastards, are going to throw at you again, Astrid.
All right.
For a 15, which I think misses you.
Yeah, now that I have my shield up.
Yeah, so maybe at the last second you like grab the shield and then the spear like thump into it, and you're able to like press yourself down. That's gonna be the woodkern. I need everyone to make a dex save, please. So if you get below a 14, it's going to be 2 points of piercing damage. Okay, that so woodkern spears. Nuada is going to charge forward, and you can see Oswald, maybe like the Valkyrie descending as this chariot. Two horses that are just barreling and like kicking up big clods of dirt as it like charges towards you. You can definitely make an attack as it enters your area, because you've been planning for that for quite some time.
All right, big money. I got 2 rolls for advantage here. 3 and an 18. So 18 plus 5, 20, 23.
Okay, and you're trying to strike the guy, right?
Yeah, whoever's piloting. Are there multiple people on here?
There's 2. So there's one who's driving it, and then there's the actual Lord himself, who just is there to like deal death.
And is it being driven by 2 horses?
Yes.
Actually, I'm gonna try and just skewer one of the horses completely.
Okay.
I want this thing to do a full-on gladiator chariot flip.
Okay, and what did you get? You got a 20 something?
23.
Okay, that'll definitely hit.
And then damage. This is the great, or it's a boar spear, I guess is what it is.
Okay.
Whatever the big 2-handed one was.
Yeah.
And then I've got the Earnhardt's blade going on. And that's plus 1. So the horse has to make a strength saving throw.
It nails it. I think horses have like +4 as well, so it's 22.
Okay. So that is, let's see, 18 damage, I think.
Okay, so it's not like flung back by the power of your blade, but it does like go right through, almost like a mirror to what happened to Theodhild's horse, like right through the front of the chest of the horse, and it just like it's gonna like slam into you because of the force, as is the other horse. I think you have another thing to do, right? Another attack. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I have it braced in the ground, so whatever you want to do
Okay.
for versus charge. I don't know. In generic, back in the day, it was double damage versus mounted, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that horse is so dead. It's like the spear, like it goes up to the point where your hands are, so like a couple of feet into the horse and out the other side, and it just like there's like this horse scream, and it smashes into you. The other horse doesn't know what's happening, continues trying to run, and the chariot is gonna like skid sideways. I'm just gonna say you're gonna take some bludgeoning damage from a horse running into you at like speed.
Makes sense.
The
The only other action Oswald would take, if he can, after this, is to pick up his shield and his hammer, or just arm himself once again. He'll leave the spear impaled in the horse.
So you'll take 10 bludgeoning damage. So it's
Oswald will be probably pinned under the horse or something to that effect.
I think that makes sense. Like there's this of like croaking wood, and of the horse of like screaming, and just like smashes over you, and maybe there's like an errant kick that like hits you, and you can see that like the chariot like flips to the side. Nuada is not a prince for no reason. He like manages to land safely, though the pilot, surprisingly, like crushed by like half of the chariot. The other horse like continues trying to run and is going to like hit into the back of the shield wall, though with no real force, just like panic, and it's like dragging the chariot behind it. And you can hear like from the back of the shield wall these like screams of like oh god Odin, of like villagers who are like not meant to be in the thick of it, as this horse just like barrels into them. So that was his turn. Now he's actually going to do his turn, which is going to be to walk into the back of the shield wall and begin cutting down peasants, as only a prince could do.
Odin has deemed you will walk this day.
So you can hear screams of alarm, and you would maybe turn Sigegnir and see like this great sword like up and then down, as like villagers at the back are screaming in the presence of this warlord. Leocramore at the front is going to try and hack through to you, Siggy. He's going to like push past one of these villagers, elbow him to the side, and try and make some attacks. Okay, so of the 3, 14 and 11 and a crit. So that's potentially bad news.
I'm gonna try to parry that.
Okay, you're looking at a 26 is what he gets to tell you.
You have a shield, don't you, Sigegnir?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can
You
use
can
that
just eat
to
the
absorb.
crit. Eh?
Yeah. I'd probably do that. And I have a metal rimmed shield, so that means I can eat 2, right?
Yes. So you'll still take the damage, I think, but you won't take the crit effect, which is the real brutality here.
Yep.
So you see this strike like aimed down, about to like thrust into your heart, and you like bring the shield up, and the sword will like go through a little bit, and like will still cut into your shoulder, but will not like murderize you. You're gonna take 7 points of piercing damage. He rolled very poorly. As like the sword bites into you, and he's like gonna like put one foot up in the shield and like pull it back out. That's going to be his turn. The Dreador looks in horror as the prince is like knocked from his chariot and his feet touch the earth, which is not supposed to happen. And he's like horrified at that. He'll like push his way through to the front of the barricade, and he's going to like run past you even, Astrid. So if you want to make an opportunity attack, you definitely can.
Yep.
Would he be moving past me too, or no?
No, she's outside of the shield wall, so he's not running
Gotcha.
through the shield wall, he's running around it.
This is Nuada, or
This is the Dreador.
okay. That will be a 16.
Okay, that'll hit him.
Okay, it's not quite as good as my bow, but that will be 9 points of damage.
Nice.
And he's like, is he like showing any visible signs of the injuries that me and Asvald gave him the night before? Or did he like do some sort of witchcrafty BS?
You think there might have been some voodoo involved. Yeah. Okay, that was Dreador. He runs to the side of the... Go ahead.
I think if I hit somebody, something happens. Oh, that's ranged. Okay.
I think most of your stuff is ranged only.
Yeah, probably. But at the... Well, I don't know if I want to do that. Yeah, no, never mind. I can move up to half my speed as my reaction if he ends his turn within 5 feet of me. But is he continuing past me?
He's continuing past you, yeah.
Okay.
He runs to the side of the prince and like basically stands in front of him so that if somebody is going to hit, they'll kill this man instead. Oswald is, I think, unconscious and has stepped away. The Woodcairn, oh, you're here?
Yeah, I rolled a death save. I need a question from you, though.
Yes.
With the radio rune, it says I have advantage on saves, attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks. Does that count for death saves?
It should probably say while you're conscious. So I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just a note for you
Yes.
as the game designer.
Yep.
All right. There's the death save, an 11.
Okay, nice. So like the horse is like thrashing on top of you, like trying to stand, though it's unable to. The other horses like run into the shield wall, and this is like the insanity that you see. This Woodcairn's going to try and throw a spear, but is unable to do so. It whizzes past you, Astrid, into the dirt. And back to Theodhild.
She screams out once again in a voice that's not her own, holding the other forelimb of this horse in her small hands. Another Constitution saving throw, please, from the Prince of Foreigners.
That's going to fail.
Yeah, awesome. So, as I snap this my own horse's limb, so too does his arm snap and contort. I'm going to be dealing max damage, 12 bludgeoning damage to him, and they are restrained. So, like as I'm holding this horse, so too is he being held in place. His blade comes down mid-swing. He's halted. His arm just snaps at some awkward angle under the weight of the sword, and he can try to pass a grit check to gain his own action, but I can then spend my action to continue this restraint as I am breaking his bones.
Rad.
That's so bad. That's those badass spell. He used to break his bones one by one.
So he's like, I guess you would see Agnir, he's like turn over your shoulder for a moment, like these screams from the villagers, and then like shouts of alarm as he just like stops, and you can see this like disgusting side, his arm just like wrenching in various directions, as his sword is like up in the air, and he's definitely vulnerable. Astrid.
So, how far away is the druid?
From you, he's less than 30 feet.
Less than 30 feet? Okay, then as my bonus action, going to mark him as my quarry, and then I'm going to pick up the spear that thunked down next to me, and I'm going to pick it up and try and hit him with it real good.
Okay.
And is the spear, is it still dex or is it strength?
What kind of... they would be strength. It's like a spear.
Strength?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That makes it a 15 to hit.
That'll hit the druid for sure.
Sweet. And so that's going to be a d8 and a d6. That will be 12 points of damage.
Okay. This druid, like, although he has like a great magnetism and presence, you start to realize that he's just an old man in a robe. Although he's able to do strange things, like he is not a warrior, and he shouldn't be here. He's just here to protect the prince. And as you stab into him, you can see he like coughs blood into his white beard, and looks up at you and like mutters something under his breath, though he still lives just barely.
All right. His speed is reduced by 10 feet for 1 minute because he was my quarry, and I hit him with a ranged attack.
Excellent.
So the old man is now hobbling even more.
Yep, he's going nowhere. Rory is dead. Sigegnir.
Sigegnir is going to try and hit at Lacra more.
Yep.
Who is in melee with him. And so he's just going to put in just a stab with his sword out from his shield. And I rolled a crit.
Oh, glory.
Which is my first crit.
Yeah.
Yay, Niscloft.
Put in. Okay. Leacra. Okay. I will need from you both damage and then a d12 and a d20.
Okay. So, damage is going...
It's double dice.
Just normal, yeah. It's at 12.
Okay.
And then the d20 is a 9. Mm-hmm. And what else, sorry?
A d12, please.
D12. Okay. That is... rolling. A 7.
7, okay. You said you stabbed him, or you slashed at him?
I tried to stab him.
Okay. Okay. So he's got his sword up, and you stab out, and the blade of your sword goes between the two bones of his forearm and out the other side, and you can wrench it and he drops his sword onto the ground, and like clutches in pain at the wound as your sword is like between the two bones there, and you can like move it and like twist it, and he screams in agony. So he's dropped his weapon. He needs to make a save, which he manages to do. So he's not stunned, but he will suffer a -2 permanently to hidden damage because of the nerve damage. So there's just like this sword coming through his arm and like between the two bones, and you can just like slash and like tear at the nerves, and his like hands, his like fingers are just like twitching involuntarily before you like pull the blade out, and he like grips at his arm. That's a devastating crit. Very nice. Odd.
Is it possible to attack the prince without having to kill the druid, or the druid always just like have to kill the druid first, or what?
So I guess Odd wouldn't know, but like mechanically, the druid is going to take any attacks that go.
Oh, okay. Well, the druid's about to die in a second, and here's why: the cloak goes flying away from Odd's shoulders, and she rises out of this plume of white and black dust that has completely covered her head to toe, and these raiments of bones that are hanging from her flesh. And she looks with her one eye, and the pupil is a pinprick in the center of her eye, and she sees the prince, and she swears that his life will be made into raven food, as I use my Calling of Bones feature to promise his life to Odin. But that won't matter right now. What will matter is that when she leaps forward to attack with this flaming sword of hers, she is dealing 20 points of damage flat out. And would have been 25, but old boy's in the way, and she didn't make a pact for him. So I imagine this would kill the druid, maybe?
Definitely.
Does 20 kill?
Yep.
Okay. I imagine she's charging down. I don't know if you played Dark Souls before, but like you're hunched over on all fours almost, and she's racing at him like a beast. And then she jumps through the air, and the bone mask opens, and she's screaming through it, and she brings the sword down. He looks up out of pain, and then there's the druid. And she's just going to cut him from shoulder to hip and rip the blade out as he falls down, slaughtered and dead.
Yeah, he
falls.
falls.
I steal another one of my shooter's kills.
Yeah. Like you say, sliced from shoulder to hip, and he just like looks stupidly for a moment, and then like will fall down, and the prince will like turn, and you can see his like hand moving against his will, and his arm like something's happening there, some fell magic. Okay, that was odd. Rad. Woodcairn is going to throw some spears at disadvantage because he's still terrified of that thing, which he misses. So a spear whizzes past your ear. Odd. That was Woodcairn. Spears at this stage. Yep, I'll need dex saves from everybody, please. You're fine, Oswald, and you're fine, Theodhild.
Yeah, I'll shelter in the corpse of the horse.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So you're used to this now, this like almost timed throwing of spears, and you can hear like the "Hua!" and you all like bring up your shields, and they're like thunk, 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 against them in the chaos. The shield wall now has sort of broken, and there's just like a swirling melee around. A maelstrom of battle. Nuada is going to make a grit check. Is that right, Connor? To try and take his turn.
Yeah, to break from the restrainment of the spell, he has to make a grit check against DC 13.
He rolls a 13. He's okay. He is going to unload, hopefully, some misery upon you, Odd.
His damage will be halved because Odd's Fury is holy, and so she is resistant to slashing, bludgeoning, and fire damage.
Hot diggity daffodil. Okay. He's going to go for it anyway. He doesn't know that.
That's why I like him.
Oh, it's a crit, Odd. I'm so sorry. The first one misses. Second one's a crit.
Her woad is going to absorb it. So imagine as that one comes down, like the woad flashes, and then just there's more powder just like swirling around these two.
Nice. Yep. So he like makes a slash with the first, and you're able to duck. The second one is going to like cut you deep, although the woad stops any like terrible wound from happening. You'll still take a lot of damage. And the third, he like tries to hit you with the blunt end, or like shove the crossguard into your face, but you're able to move away from that too. So he's going to use his martial superiority to do 2d6 extra damage.
Sick.
It's going to be 3 and 11 and 4. 19 points of damage. From
All right, so we're rounding up or down. So basically, am I taking
yes, you'll take
9
half.
or 8? 8.
You'll take 8.
8. Sick. All right.
Sorry, no, 9. Definitely 9, because it's 18 would be the closest. So, yeah, this like brutal strike, and you can tell that this man is like a master swordsman, like Gunlander level of swordsman, as he like makes these amazing strikes, though your fury is holy, and you resist most of the misery. Okay, thank you for that. That was Nuada. Leokra is clutching the ruin of his arm, and it's like not going to be useful for attacks. He's going to like reach down and grab the sword, and he's going to try and retreat away from you, Sigegnir, so you can make an attack with your opportunity.
21 to hit.
That'll hit.
With 10 slashing damage.
So he like turns to run, and you like slash at his back, and you like open up this big cut. And that is going to be that. The Dreador is dead, slain. Oswald, death save, please.
2.
Okay, that's a fail. One of these woodkerns is going to throw a spear, but misses, unsurprisingly. So spears are just constantly raining all the time, over and down, everywhere you look. We're back to the top with Theodhild.
Theodhild reaches into the chest area of this horse corpse, and as she pushes into the flesh of this horse, it just gives way to her hand as she reaches into the ribs of the horse and snaps them one by one. And so too did the ribs of this Tuathan prince snap one by one, as he takes 11 more bludgeoning damage and is restrained unless he makes a grit check next turn.
Nice. I just love that spell. It's rad. It's really scary. Okay, that's Theodhild. Astrid.
How far is Astrid from Asvald?
You would see that he's like crushed beneath a horse.
Yeah.
The horse is like sort of kicking, just like its nerves firing. You can definitely get there. He's like less than 30 feet from you.
Okay, good, because I can move 40. And so, like as she turned and threw the spear at the druid, she notices that the foreign holy man is like laying underneath the horse, and she's going to like run that way, and she's going to like try and shove the horse off of him so that she can use her secret of the seers so that she can heal him.
Okay. Shoving the horse off is going to be very difficult. Horses are big. So you can make.
But can I stabilize him without moving the horse, or do I need to move the horse?
I think you probably could. Like you would see that he's like bleeding from a great many wounds. I think you could like stabilize him, but he would still be trapped.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Well, then I'm just going to try and heal him then, if 'cause that's the important thing.
Yes.
So with I can attempt to heal an ally who is unconscious using wound wise. On a success, the ally gains hit points equal to my wisdom modifier plus my proficiency modifier. What's the DC?
I should say that in there, right?
Yeah.
Let's, I don't know, 15.
Okay. That's a natural 1.
Okay, so you're like looking at the ruin of Oswald, and he's got like these great wounds all over him, and you're just like trying to fix things, but I think you might be making it worse. Mechanically, nothing's going to happen, but you're like trying to fix it, and there's too much stuff happening, too many spears, and okay. Ruri Jarek is slain. Sigegnir. You can see like the shield wall mostly has broken at this stage, and it's like just this chaos everywhere.
Yeah, I think for the first time since they started marching, Sigegnir is just going to pause and take a look at the state of who is fighting who, the integrity of the people fighting. Like, how is this looking? I would guess that he would be able to get a pretty good feel for that.
Definitely, yep. So you would see that like a great many of your villagers have died, but like a lot of the Tuathans are dead. Notably, like one of their big warriors is dead. The other one has fled, and beyond that, like their prince is at the back, seemingly on his own now. Their druid is dead. There's like a great fear that like ripples through them. You can almost like smell it, and you think it's like not long before they all break.
Especially if their leader dies. So right now, Odd is attacking the leader, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Segegnir is... How far away are they?
In walking distance.
Okay, so Segegnir is going to shout at Odd to make her attack and make it strike true. Strike into his armor, and you get an attack. And then you can add a d8 to your damage.
Okay, this guy's about to be fucked. So I pre-rolled for my turn, all right? So I'm doing 30 damage because I crit him. And I rolled a 2 and a 4 for my crit. I think it was a 2 and a 4, a 4 and a 2.
Plus a d8.
Yeah, that's with the d8. I just rolled and added to it. So that's 30 damage and then a 2 and a 4. Or a 4 and a 2, excuse me. 4 on a d6, 2 on a d12. There we go.
All right, 4 and a 2. Which was the D12?
The D12 was a 2.
Okay. Okay. So the strike lacerates deep into his thigh, and you feel it hit bone, and he like screams in pain. He unsurprisingly falls prone from that onto the ground, though he's like holding onto his weapon tightly. His movement is reduced by 10 feet permanently as like you like hack into the bone of his leg, and there's like a crack almost, and he like falls down onto the ground.
And that's my turn for real.
He looks up and he says, "I yield." And I don't know if Odd even can understand language, but that's what he says. And I guess like Astrid and Siggy and stuff would hear it too. But yeah, that's gonna be that.
So it's officially Odd's turn then, because that was her reaction because of
it's your turn.
her seer. So because her fury is holy, she has to attack, and she has already made a pact to Odin to give Odin this man's life. So with advantage, because one is restrained and he's also prone, I have a 19 on the die, so plus a +5. I'm imagining that's gonna hit him. That's a 24.
Yep.
Perfect. So let me go ahead and roll damage here. So, whoop. All right, so it's going to be 6, 4. That's 10 on that, and then 15. All right, yeah, it's going to be 15 points of damage as she shoves the blade down and basically doing the same thing to him what she did to Rua. And as she's doing it, and he's screaming out, "I yield, I yield," she's screaming back out him, "That is what Rua said!" And she's going to just keep stabbing into his gut again and again, almost laughing, almost singing as she's doing so.
Yeah, so he, I guess like Segegnir and Astrid would hear him shout, "I yield," and Odd's just like shoving this into his gut over and over again, and then he's like as he like dies from the continued stabbing from the sword. This prince of the Tuathan people. I'm sure there will be no consequences at all for killing this man. Okay, that's Odd's turn. This man dies, and with his dying breath, you see many of the Tuathans just bottle it and flee. Laker has already fled, and in the village, many of the men who were throwing spears just start to run and break. This is like a crucial part in the battle because your men are going to have the battle rage upon them, and they're going to want to chase, but that can be dangerous. So it's really up to you, Segegnir. I'm going to like let you take a reaction to make a command. Either tell them to go or tell them to stay.
Oh, where are they heading? Are they heading back into the village or just dispersing?
It looks like their intention is to just like flee in every direction to not get killed. But your people who are in the shield wall have been killing, and they've seen their friends die, and they want to like make these people suffer. So
yeah, I think he would make that quick look to see if they were heading back into the village for some sort of trap. But since they're just dispersing, he would just let them go, let them get their rightful revenge from their friends and stuff like that. He would let them go.
Okay, so there's a shout, "Kill them all! Feed the eagle!" And your shield wall and your people just like scream, "Tyr, Odin!" And you see them like running, and some of the Tuathans are like, "No, no, 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 no!" And you see like axe blades come down, and there's a great slaughter that follows. That's going to be the end of the combat. There is a victory, although maybe a Pyrrhic one, as many of your villagers lie dead. And Odd is still just like shoving the sword over and over again into this prince, like ruining the front of his fine mail, and his like hand is still twitching, and like bones snapping as Theotild continues her misery.
Do I have a chance to get another wound-wise check-in before Asvald has to make another death save?
Definitely, yep.
Okay. Okay, hope I roll good on this one. That will be a 10. Will it stabilize him? It's not good enough for the healing, but I can't do that, right? Anyways.
No, I mean, I think the 15 is like for the actual ability, so I think it's both or none, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I can't do the ability again anyway, but at the very least, can I stabilize him with the 10?
I don't know how it usually works. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's a 10 and 5e. I don't know how you do it in Iskloft. It could be higher. Because
You gotta get a 25 in Iskloft.
You know, the horse corpse is probably blocking off a lot of the arteries bleeding. So
yeah, it's staunching a lot of like the wounds. It's just basically got to make sure, like, you know, it's not like, you know, cracking his ribs and puncturing his lungs.
There's some time that goes by, and like Asvald will be stabilized, and there's like butchery following, and you can hear like screams within the village. But eventually, like some of the warriors will like round up some thralls. There'll be like 7 of them that they're able to bring back into thraldom. That's worthwhile loot. Many of the villagers here who like would have been fighting at the back, you wouldn't have seen, but there were other Tuathans there fighting them, and they will like embrace you gladly, seeing the victory that you've authored here.
I imagine Odd at a certain point would have stopped butchering this guy and then would have leapt and joined just the slaughter of all the Tuathans. And she would have just completely disappeared in the chaos. Even when like the battle's over and the thralls are gathered up, Odd is still missing for right now.
The Gagnir, I don't think, would have taken part in the dispersing after he gave out his decree for everyone to keep going. He would kind of fall to his knees. He is extremely hurt. And I would think at this point all the adrenaline has just left him from this fight, and he is just kind of clutching at his stomach and his chest, just breathing hard with one sword, just his sword just resting on it, just watching the carnage.
Yeah, it goes on for a lot longer than you would think. Men take a long time to die, and there are screams for a long time. Those who are like badly wounded but like healable will also be dragged back as thralls. There's like a pile of like these Tuathans who are like unable to speak the language and are unable to do anything. There's just screams and misery and blood. But a victory has been authored here by Sigegnir, at least that's how everyone will see it. And crows will swirl overhead. Not ravens, crows. The camera will pull up, and that's where we're going to end it today, after your glorious victory. So thanks to those of you who watched. I hope that you enjoyed this, and we'll catch you next time. How do I end the thing? I gotta learn to do this better and like time this better, because
learn more better.
Did you end it?
no, not yet.
Just stop streaming on OBS. You can do it, Lord. I believe in you.